A gold medal for the U.S. women's hockey team, beating Canada in overtime, claiming women's Olympic hockey gold. The seventh matchup between these two teams all time for the gold medal. Canada still leads 4-3. But what a game, man. I don't know that there's anything in sports quite like overtime in hockey. Golden goal, everything on the line, gold medal on the line, and the women get it done. My goodness gracious, congratulations to them. What's going on? Drive time, Thursday afternoon style. About 14 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Sunny today, cold today after we got smoked yesterday with some snow. But powder yesterday, blue skies today. You know what that means. Shredding the gnar. That's right. That's right, Porter. We're starting the show like that. A bunch of pow yesterday. Not even powder. Pow, pow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to talk like ski bros all day today. Bluebird skies today, and that means the ski bros are shredding the gnar.
They are. The chowder is thick.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Be careful, though. Crazy conditions.
Oh, with the avalanches.
Oh, yeah. There's been like a bunch of deaths all over the West, and including one in Utah today.
Indeed. So be careful out there, but shred the gnar. Shred the gnar responsibly. Do everything responsibly. That's the way to live your life, right? But happy Thursday, almost to that weekend. We got a lot to do on the radio show today. Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, with some harsh comments concerning tanking NBA teams. And those teams include, of course, the Utah Jazz. I don't want to bury the lead, though. Happy for Alex Jensen and the Utah men's basketball team. I watched that entire game last night, and I'll tell you what, we'll see what happens the rest of the way, but for those of you that don't watch a lot of Big 12 basketball because you have a life, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, West Virginia is a good basketball team. Like, this is not beating, K-State, who along with Utah is near the bottom of the conference. West Virginia is a solid team. The Utes had, no chance to get that done. They were a massive underdog both in Vegas on the prediction markets. When you look at West Virginia's season, they went to UCF and beat UCF. They beat they beat Cincinnati on their home floor. They beat Kansas by 11 points earlier this season. They almost got Ohio State. This is not a bad team. So Utah basketball, with a win last night, that hopefully is just a little bit of a confidence boost for a group that just has not been able to experience a lot of success. Now, look, going to be UCF at home. Iowa State is awesome. Iowa State, man, if you haven't tuned in there, that's a good team. At Arizona State, Colorado at home, Baylor at home. Man, with the final 5 games, if you can grab 2 or 3 of them, I know that's not a high barometer. Heading into the tournament, maybe it's a group that can learn that they can compete at the highest level of college basketball. So I was thrilled for Alex, thrilled for Utah men's basketball to get that win last night on the road in Big 12 play, breaking a 15-game Big 12 road losing streak. So we'll do some college basketball on the show today. Arizona, BYU last night. It was the first game BYU has played since the unfortunate news that Richie Saunders is going to miss the rest of the season with a torn ACL. And BYU fought, but Arizona it's just a really good team. McHale's a tough place to play. Now, Arizona was without Koa Pete, who's probably their best NBA prospect. A.J. DeBonce at 35 points, but he took 28 shots to get his 35 points. And I'm telling you, I've been talking about this all year. The top-end talent for BYU is undeniable. They have zero depth. And I think if they played the team that Kevin had a year ago, that team smokes this team. BYU is now trending towards an 8 or a 9 seed. And I don't think they have the pieces now that Richie Saunders is out for the year to do much in conference play. Keba Keita has not had a great year. And they are so iso-centric. If AJ or Rob Wright doesn't make something happen, it's hard to tell what they're trying to run. There's not a lot of motion. There's not a lot of ball movement. It's pretty much individual hero ball. So BYU falls to 7-6 in Big 12 play, 19-7 overall, and trending towards potentially the most disappointing season BYU's basketball has had in a long time. And that's based off of expectations that I myself had for them. So we'll do some college hoops. The NBA is off the NBA's back tonight. The Jazz are off tonight, but some NBA basketball tonight as the All-Star break is officially over. And the stretch run of the NBA season begins. So a bevy of games tonight. And then the Jazz will be back in action coming up tomorrow against Memphis. Should have been a homecoming of sorts for Jaren Jackson Jr., but he's out for the year. How about the lads, huh? Vancouver RSL. The season opener for Real Salt Lake is coming up on Saturday at 5:30 Mountain Time on Apple TV. I'll tease that tonight at 10:35 on KMYU. It's our first edition of Talkin' Real. Myself and Brian Dunseth to talk some soccer. It's going to be a fun 5 or 6 month stretch if you are a soccer fan, with both MLS and obviously the World Cup being played in our region. The PGA Tour is in Los Angeles. The Genesis Invitational, Akshay Bhatia, who's played some good golf this year, along with Rory McIlroy, 3 under par. Colin Morikawa is at 2 under, as is Sam Burns. We'll get you a couple updates in that direction. All right, good guest list. We're going to talk some hockey. We'll talk some Olympic hockey and some Utah Mammoth with our friend Adrian Denny, who stops by the program today. Tim McMahon, Ban McMahon, after the All-Star break. We'll bring Tim in today to talk some Jazz and talk some NBA basketball. Jason Batakiao, who covers the Utes. We'll do some football and basketball with Jason. And then we will move over to our friend, the aforementioned Brian Dunseth, 10-year MLS vet, captain of the Olympic team. You can watch and listen to him alongside Max Bretas for the Apple TV MLS coverage. We'll preview the opener for RSL, and we'll talk some World Cup, as Dunny's going to be part of Turner Sports World Cup coverage as well. Little sports court, handy and handy. That means it's a Thursday. So good guest list with Adrian Denny, Tim McMahon, Jason Batakiao, Brian Dunseth, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and that young man who produces the program, Porter Larson, on a Thursday. Look, West Virginia's good.
Yeah.
That's not a bad basketball team. Like, I sat down to watch the game, and I told you before I left the studio, like, the odds prediction market, like, I think it was 13% chance for Utah to win. That's a really good win. I don't know what it means the rest of the way, but you got to celebrate small moments for a team this year that hasn't had a lot of success.
No, that's really the only angle that you're looking at this team with is how do they finish, not necessarily the win and loss, but how does it look on the floor? The chemistry with Alex Jensen, the way they come out, and of course, which players may be on the roster next year. And Spence, when you get off to a start like Utah did, I know only the radio listeners knew about it because the TV was like 30 minutes delayed.
Yeah.
But they got out to an 18-2 lead to start the game. It got tight towards the end, but if you can come out with that type of energy on the road, completely across the country, you're giving yourself a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really, really cool. I'm happy for them. So Utah basketball gets a much-needed road win. We'll talk about it throughout the course of the show today. We're going to do some hockey, though, right out of the gates with Adrian Denny. But before Adrian stops by, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends, too, at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 with Prize Picks.
Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting, so don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports. It's available here in Utah, so no worries there. They've got a new feature where you can have early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Slow clap for Alex Jensen and the Utah Utes men's basketball program. It has been a rough year, as we thought it would be. We've talked about this and been very clear about our expectations that this is essentially an entire rebuild. The only player of note that returned is Kiana Dawes. It's a brand new coaching staff. It's a brand new group of players. Brigham Young spent more on A.J. DeBonsa than Utah basketball did on their entire roster. This roster needs badly needs an economic investment this offseason. I've watched I'm not going to say every game. I don't know that I was dialed into Utah Sam Houston or Holy Cross or Purdue FW, but I've watched every conference game, and I can safely say that, in my opinion, every team I've watched in the Big 12 has better top-end talent, has better depth, and just has a better roster that Alex has at his disposal. I don't want to be too critical and, essentially knock on these young men who are doing their best to win games every night. It's just very clear that the talent gap every single night in the Big 12 is large. It's sizable. And if you're not spending money on talent in 2025, 2026 in college basketball or college football, you are going to get your head kicked in every night. And yes, we have discussed and will continue to discuss all the complications that the current landscape of college athletics brings. But the bottom line is the bottom line. It's why Witt talked about it every time he had a chance. If you don't have NIL, if you don't have economic investment, you will be left behind. So let's start right there. This team needs some sort of booster, some sort of donor, somebody in the Utah athletic ecosystem who cares about basketball needs to start writing checks. And there's a hard stop at the end of that sentence, okay? That's the bottom line. 15 straight Big 12 road game L's. They go into West Virginia last night in Morgantown to take on a really talented team. And I'm telling you, West Virginia, as a result of that loss, has work to do to get into the tournament. But prior to last night, they were thought to be a tournament team. A team that has beaten Kansas this year, a team that has a road win against UCF and Cincinnati, and they've played some really good teams, really tough and losing endeavors. But ultimately, look, I'm not going to paint West Virginia like they're Arizona, Houston, or Iowa State, but that's a good team that's pretty good at home with some talented players. And as the Hunter Huff kid, Brooklyn's own, shout out. I basically grew up in Brooklyn. I don't know if you knew that. I did not.
Tony Jones.
Oh, a shot. Did you say that on the radio?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought it was Philly. I don't know. Anyway.
That's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
Tony, to his credit, he did move around a lot. His mom was a journalist.
Right.
But he grew up in Brooklyn, in Philly, in D.C.
I think
here, too.
Cleveland at one point. I mean,
he was born in Akron.
Okay. Well, he and LeBron. He played against Steph and Kobe. I don't know. He's also, isn't he 6'4"? Anyway, none of that's true. Hunter Huff is a really good guard who's had a really good year. He got going a little bit in the second half, but Utah basketball, as Porter referenced, they get off to this 18-2 start. And the crazy thing is they weren't really making a ton of shots. Like Don McHenry got off to a good start, but it was on defense, which I've been waiting to see from them all year long, where they had focus and intensity and effort the entire game. That's what you have to have. For 2 halves of basketball, for 40 minutes of basketball, you have to be locked in, dialed in, and doing your best. It sounds simple, but I haven't seen it from this roster all year long, and I saw it last night. And I felt so relieved for my friend Alex Jensen, who I'm cheering for, and I can't even tell you how much I want this to work for Al. Because I've been to games, and because nobody goes to the Huntsman Center, which sucks, if you're within the first 10 or 15 rows, you can hear everything Alex is saying to his players. He's trying to coach them up. He's trying to motivate them. When they're not executing on offense, he's clear that they need to move the ball. He's clear that they need to play with a purpose. And then on defense, like when the sharp kid from Houston was just hitting wide open practice threes when Houston was here, Alex was yelling at his players to gap and blitz and get up and provide pressure. But for whatever reason, the players weren't listening or didn't understand what he was asking of them. That's why last night was such a breath of fresh air. Because, again, the shot making, it wasn't great. This isn't a great offensive basketball team. They shot 31% from three, 40% from the line. They missed 7 free throws. That was an effort win on defense. And if they can bring that effort every single night, I'm not saying anything special is probably going to happen this year, but at least we might start seeing some movement in the right direction, which is what we saw last night. So thrilled for Utah, 61-56 over West Virginia. The U.S. women's hockey team grabs gold today in an overtime win over Canada. We'll catch a break, but the latest on the NBA and the Utah Jazz with Tim McMahon comes up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. NBA, excuse me, NBA basketball back tonight. The All-Star break is over. Jazz going to be back in action tomorrow night against Memphis. Homecoming for Jaren Jackson Jr., but, he's not playing all year long. Tim McMahon, after the All-Star break, are you invigorated and ready to go, young man?
Howdy, partner. I am ready to sit on the couch and watch NBA basketball. I'll be honest with you, I don't have a game I have to cover through the weekend, so it's going to be kind of like a soft launch back into the NBA second half of the season or last third of the season, whatever it may be.
Oh, good for you.
Looking forward to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Did you get away over All-Star? Were you able to take a vacation of sorts?
I did. I was in LA last week for, work, and then my wife met me up there. We went down to Laguna Niguel, a little bit south of Los Angeles, used some hotel points on a nice little resort on the beach there, and, not a bad way to spend the All-Star weekend. I watched, I think, about half of the All-Star game, none of the Saturday night, and, not a bad way to go.
All right, well, let's just get that out of the way then, because I know you're not a big All-Star weekend guy, and honestly speaking, I've given up. I used to love it, and now I've accepted it for what it is. But I have to say, I don't know if it's format. I don't know if it's Wembanyama wants to slit your throat. I don't know if it's the young players playing hard. I will say for me, Tim, that was as entertained that I've been watching an NBA All-Star game in quite some time.
Listen, if we're going to criticize Adam Silver when we think he screws things up, we got to give him credit.
Yep.
This U.S. versus the world or two U.S.'s versus the world format produced a competitive product. And so, you got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, Anthony Edwards, who won the MVP, said himself that he thought Wemby set the tone. But that's great because that means you've got a young guy who wants to be the face of the league, certainly has the talent to be the face of the league, who considers that showcase part of his domain. And so the ratings were great, the best ratings I think I saw in 15 years. And, the tweak, while it was kind of hard to wrap your head around, produced the intended result.
Let me stay in this space with you for a moment. And look, the conversation about Wembanyama being incredible is not new. But as it pertains to the way he's grown and how quickly he's moved into the space of already being one of the best players in pro basketball, you've been able to watch him a lot, probably been able to get to know him in a way most people in the media have not. And we're going to assume full health, obviously that's an issue that he's run into already.
Sure.
What sort of ceiling, or is there one? Because when I lock in on him, and if he's engaged, healthy, and just going the way he can, I've never seen anything like it in my life, Tim.
No, we have not seen anybody that tall, that fluid athletically, that skilled, that competitive. We've not seen this package. And there's time, like you watch him, and almost every game you watch him, he does something that just leaves your jaw dropping. I've covered a couple of Wemby performances this year that, you're just shaking your head about days later, weeks later, months later. I mean, the opener against the Mavericks when AD was healthy and he just destroyed him for 40 points, 15 rebounds. I think he had like 5 blocks. And there were 6, 7, 8 times during that game where I'm literally just putting my hands in my head saying, I can't believe I just saw that. I've never seen somebody do that before on a basketball court. I mean, he has dunks that look like he's playing on a Nerf hoop, but then he'll also hit pull-up 30-footers. Defensively, I mean, he is everything Rudy Gobert ever was and more. It's absolutely incredible. And then, I saw him against the Lakers, and it was definitely the Lakers JV team. Their stars were out, and then DeAndre Ayton had the, my knee's sore as Wemby was warming up type of situation. But the guy scored 25 points in the first 8 minutes of the game. Again, at that size, we've never seen anybody with this skill. And he's just starting to kind of grow into his offensive powers and figure out, what the best blend of the perimeter game, the off-dribble game, the more traditional center stuff, like how to blend all that together, how to read and attack defenses. So I think he's just scratching his potential, the surface of his potential on the offensive end. And then again, defensively, if he plays 65 games, he's going to be the defensive player of the year this year and probably for a long time to come.
And the other thing, and I want your insight on this as well. I mean, everything I hear about him as just a person, he seems to be very serious about wanting to maximize his potential and takes competition seriously, doesn't party, doesn't go out. Apparently, he reads like 40 to 50 books a year. Spent some time, I think, overseas this last offseason, learning Taekwondo or something. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but what makes him tick? Because obviously, measurement, skill set, all there. But as we know, mentality is a big portion of this too.
He was hanging out with Chinese monks this offseason.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I think what makes Wemby tick can be summed up really simply. He wants to achieve his potential. And we all can understand how massive his potential is. He wants every bit of it. He wants to be the face of the league, and he's not going to leave anything within his powers unchecked there. And again, look, obviously the health is a big factor in all this, and the biggest concern. This guy works. Like, you could already see, obviously he's lean, but you could already see his work in the weight room paying off. I mean, there are muscles he did not have coming over here. I think he's going to continually, he's not going to end up being 300 pounds, nor does he want to be, but he's going to keep getting stronger. He's going to keep getting better because of that. He's going to do everything possible in terms of, work that can help prevent injuries. And his desire to be the face of the league, like, he understands the media responsibilities and the importance in that. He's a guy, like, if you ask him a good question, he's going to think about it, and he's going to try to give you an interesting answer. He takes pride in that. He understands the connection with the fan base. They've got this group, and it's kind of like inspired from the European football teams, a group in San Antonio called the Jackals. Wemby was the judge. It was his idea, and he was the judge. He held tryouts. Fans are coming in, and he's like deciding who can be in this group, and he has occasional meetings with them. I mean, everything about being the face of a franchise and the face of the league, he's into. He wants it, and so when you say he's serious, yeah, he is absolutely serious, but he's not serious in like a stuffy way. He's serious in what do I need to do to be great, and what do I need to do to really maximize the potential not only of his ability, but of the franchise and really the league. And I think that's reflected in his competitiveness in the All-Star game.
Remember when some people were debating Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson? Those were the days.
No, I
don't. Fair enough. Well said. Hey, before we move off of this, I mean, look, Oklahoma City's awesome, and there are a lot. Like, I'm not going to dismiss Jokic in Denver until they show us that we're done, but I don't know, man. It feels like San Antonio, and I know what they've done head-to-head against OKC. We just haven't seen it in the playoffs. Is it time to maybe talk about San Antonio as a team that's going to have something to say about this year?
They feel that way. And they didn't make a single move at the trade deadline, and that wasn't a sign that they didn't think they were ready. That was a sign that, hey, let's see what this group can do, and if we've got to tweak and add, so be it. But we're going to give this group a chance this season. And really, it feels like a matter of when and not if. Again, if Wemby is healthy. But, it would be a pretty historic achievement for them to be able to skip the line without having a single playoff appearance as a group and win a title this season. I would not bet on that happening. But, I'll just borrow a line from my colleague Brian Windhurst. We do not put ceilings on Victor Wembanyama because he'd only hit his head on him.
Love that. All right, Tim, I don't know if you've heard, but the Jazz have been in the news over the past couple of weeks. So,
yeah. Big trade. What else has happened?
Let's just kind of get into it. I have fatigue. I have tanking fatigue. And, when you're a sports talk radio host in Salt Lake City and it's NBA season and football's over, you got to talk about the Jazz. And this is the thing to talk about. We'll get into some things to watch for the rest of the way. I'll just kind of bottom line this, then get out of the way and let you do the thing. I believe the Jazz deserve to be punished. And the letter of the law with the player participation policy indicates the Jazz deserve it. My question is, why, 500,000 for the Jazz, 100,000 for the Pacers, but there are at least 5 or 6, if not 7 or 8, other teams doing the same thing, just utilizing different tactics. It does feel like the Jazz have been singled out a little bit. Why do you think that is?
If you have tanking fatigue, how do you think Will Hardy feels about it?
For sure.
And look, why are the Jazz singled out? Because they're repeat offenders. And this is, depending on how you want to define it, the fourth year of their tank?
Yep.
Unfortunately, the first 3 years weren't, the strategy wasn't successful enough. This will be the last year because, they won't benefit from a tank next year. And because they've put together a core now, making the move for Jaren Jackson Jr., where if you add a high lottery pick to it, or even a mid-lottery pick, and what's supposed to be a loaded draft, they should be a competitive team next year, and that's absolutely the plan. But the short answer is why are they being punished more severely? Is because they are repeat offenders, and because they are, it's been blatant. And the words that Adam Silver used in a statement of overt behavior, it's been a little bit too transparent of a tank, I guess you could say. But here's the thing. I 1,000% agree with you. You hit the Jazz, you slap the Pacers on the wrist. What about the other 7 or 8 teams that are pretty blatantly tanking, right? Come on. What about the Washington Wizards? Who they owe a top 8 protected pick as well, just like the Jazz. It's a very similar situation. Come on. Trae Young was playing for the Hawks, but now he's got these injuries since he was traded. I guess it was maybe there's some turbulence on the flight to D.C. I don't know. But, now he's out for months, but likely the rest of the season. The AD timeline went from 6 weeks to, I think it's 6 to 10. Look, they're blatantly tanking. The Nets are blatantly tanking. There's again a third of the league is blatantly tanking. So Adam Silver got a little bit of a that was a response by Adam Silver to just the noise about tanking and the fact that it has become a spotlight issue. But if you're gonna punish one, if you're gonna punish two, you got to punish 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And I think that's where Adam Silver is right now. That's where the league office is right now. And ultimately, you have to change the incentive structure because the simple fact is if tanking wasn't sensible strategy, you wouldn't have a third of the league doing it. And I don't think it'll be as bad next year because the draft isn't as loaded. But tanking has been a massive issue for the NBA for decades now. So it's time to, and if it takes something drastic, then it's time to get it done because I do agree that tanking is the biggest problem in the NBA because it severely damages the product.
Of all the proposed solutions, and we've talked about this with all of our guests, and poor Bobby Marks, who joined us yesterday, he's caught in the crossfire of Jazz fans who are angry online. We talked to Bobby about some things. The Mike Zarin wheel solution has made the rounds. Tom Haberstroh, your old friend, hopped on and kind of outlined that. Stan Van Gundy says get rid of the draft and make these kids free agents. Of all the proposed solutions, Tim, is there one out there, and I'll say that's most pragmatic, that actually feels like it could be executed?
I like the solution that Tim Bontemps wrote about today on ESPN.com, and it takes something pretty extraordinary for me to agree with Bontemps. But there are kinks to be ironed out, but the basics are at a certain point, whether it's the trade deadline after the All-Star break, whenever that may be, wins count towards ping pong balls and not losses for teams in the lottery, and that prevents just the complete bottoming out in the last couple months of the season. Prevents what the Jazz have done the last few years. It prevents, honestly, what the Sixers did when they had a top 6 protected pick last year when they went 4-24 down the stretch. It prevents guys from shutting down. There's so many guys now that are having surgeries on hangnails around the league. It prevents that from being a strategy. But again, whether it's that, whatever it is, there has to be some flattening the lottery odds, which was done to try to prevent tanking, only made it worse because now it makes sense for more teams to tank instead of it just being 3 or 4. You've got 8 or 10. And so something has to be done, and that has to be Adam Silver's top priority this offseason.
All right, when it comes to the role of gambling, when it comes to the role of, and look, it's every league. It's every. I have Prize Picks reads. Okay, it's every entity at this point. We're all in bed with this ecosystem. How much pressure, if any at all, do you think the league is feeling behind the scenes from their partners that pay the bills? And I understand how that works to kind of get this thing curtailed. What's the influence on gambling platforms here?
Well, I don't think there's any question that's part of it because you're absolutely screwing up, over-unders and, all that kind of stuff. So, yes, there's absolutely pressure from there. But listen, man, there should be pressure from my employer and the other TV partners. I'm sorry, but I shouldn't have to wonder if both teams are trying to win or assume that both teams are trying to win if I'm tuned into a game in late February.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, like tonight, I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but how many of these games can you say with confidence, hey, the goal for both teams in this is to try to win the game? It's certainly not all of them.
Yeah, I've got it in front of me, and we got Nets, Cavs. I don't know what Atlanta's doing. There's some interesting gray areas, like the Pelicans owe their pick to the Hawks, so I don't know that they're tanking. Let me are the
the Pelicans aren't tanking; they're just that terrible.
Right,
really embarrassing.
Right, exactly. Are the Mavs tanking? Is it fair to say that
yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
Listen, they're tanking. The Mavericks are in a weird spot where, yes, they benefit from being bad. And by the way, if they're not bad this year, they don't benefit from being bad again until 2031 after Cooper Flag's rookie contract because the picks that are out the door. But was that a factor in the decision for Kyrie Irving to rule out playing again this season? They'll tell you no, and I'll say, please put a polygraph on. I mean, come on. Of course it's a factor. But they're tanking, kind of organically because the roster stinks, especially without Kyrie after you trade AD for, basically financial relief. But they're doing it while trying to make sure Cooper Flag gets Rookie of the Year. They're in a really awkward spot. But, yeah, the Mavericks need to get a mid to high lottery pick this year because that's really the only way they're going to get somebody anywhere close to Cooper Flag's timeline that can be a co-star.
Are the Bulls tanking?
Now they are, and they're kind of doing the, early Will Hardy Utah Jazz tank, which is the mid-season. Well, we're not good enough to do anything. Gee whiz, we're kind of behind the tank race, but let's pull the plug now. They're in the too little, too late tank stage.
Are the Milwaukee Bucks tanking?
I don't know what the hell Milwaukee's doing. They stink. But, come on, man. So Giannis wants to play. So you're if Giannis comes back, they're clearly not tanking. They're just not going anywhere. They're stuck in they're stuck in purgatory with their lips attached to Giannis's butt, which is a weird way to go through life. But honestly, they're clinging to hope that they can turn this thing around and convince Giannis to stay, which, how is that going to happen if you don't completely bottom out and get a good pick in this draft? So I don't know what Milwaukee's doing. I know what they should be doing. And that's the thing, if you ask me what teams should be doing, what should Dallas be doing? They should be tanking.
Yeah.
Of course they should be tanking. So should the Jazz. And so it's on the league to make it to where teams aren't doing a disservice to their own franchise by trying to win games.
Sabonis shut down as well. Now, let me read Section D of the NBA player participation policy, which is found on the NBA's own website that says shutdowns. Teams must refrain from any long-term shutdown or near shutdown whereby a star player ceases participating in games or begins to play a materially reduced role in circumstances affecting the integrity of the game. So are we going to see Sacramento fined? Will Washington be fined? Will any of these other teams receive the treatment the Utah Jazz received?
I don't think Sac will. Sac stunk on their own. And then, listen, could Sabonis and Levine have waited until the offseason to get their surgeries? I'm not a doctor, but I would suspect that's probably the case. But they had operations. So, I think that gives the Kings coverage there. Now, Washington, again, Trae Young was playing for the Atlanta Hawks when he was traded.
Yep.
And so I'm sorry. What's going on there? And same thing with Zubats with Indiana. Zubats played 15 of the previous 16 games for the Clippers before he was traded. He'd come back from that ankle and was playing and contributing to winning, by the way. And now he's out for an indefinite period. I would like to see some MRIs. I'd like to see some MRIs on Trae Young. And with Anthony Davis going to Washington, the Mavericks sent out a press release after AD went to the doctor. I don't remember the exact time. I think it was late January, early February, or whatever it was. And it was a very specific phrase in the press release that said he will be healed in 6 weeks, which would have gotten him back like late February, early March. He goes to Washington, and Will Dawkins says, I think the timeline was like 6 to 10 weeks. He's like, no, the timeline was very specific. It was 6 weeks. He's like, I think they've got to take a look at Washington. If you're going to be handing out fines for blatant tanking, I don't see how you could not put the Wizards under the same microscope that the Jazz are under.
All right, before I say lose, because I know you got to get going, let me get a thought from you. It was only 49 minutes, but it was 49 glorious minutes where Jaren Jackson Jr. and Larry Marketing played together. And look, Will's system, I think, is just going to be so perfect. You can see why they made the deal. So tell me what you saw and what Jazz fans should maybe expect next year when they're serious about competing.
Yeah, and so I know that before the trade was made, the question was asked to Will, like, hey, how do you think this works offensively? And he's like, of all the offensive, puzzles I've had to try to piece together during my time, this is a pretty easy one.
Yeah.
Like, he's looking forward to this. And, I think the big puzzle piece, there's two big puzzle pieces that we don't know yet. One, where will they land in the lottery and who are they going to pick? I mean, this is a loaded draft. So, there's a good chance you're going to be able to add an impact player. Who exactly that'll be, we'll see. And then the Kessler puzzle piece. And that's a big one. And I've talked a lot about just the gap in what the Jazz intend to offer and where his agents believe he can, where they think his value is. But the idea is Lowry's a 7-foot small forward, right? Jaren Jackson Jr. is he is 6'11", perimeter-oriented on the offensive end, power forward who's a rim-protecting, help defender, machine, former defense player. He is not a center. If you pair him with Walker Kessler, you can make a strong argument that the Utah Jazz, who are literally the worst defensive team in NBA history this season, would have the best rim-protecting tandem in the league, and that solves an awful lot of problems. So I think offensively they're going to be a very good team. I think defensively they will be a drastically improved team.
Tim, good stuff, man. I'm glad you got some downtime. Enjoy the staycation, watching some hoops, and we'll get you back soon. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, the great Tim McMahon covers the NBA for ESPN, and maybe next year we'll start covering the Jazz specifically once again. Tim Bontemps wrote a piece today with a proposed solution to the tanking stuff. I would send you to ESPN.com. Maybe we'll get Tim on the show soon. I did want to read this. Matt Ishbia, who is the owner of the Phoenix Suns, Tom Haberstroh, our very own Tom Haberstroh, wrote a piece today where he power ranked the teams based on a sophisticated 5-factor system. And by power rank the teams, I mean he power ranked the teams who are tanking, Jazz included. Matt Ishbia read it and then sent out on social media the following. This is ridiculous. Tanking is a losing behavior done by losers. Purposely losing is something nobody should want to be associated with. Embarrassing for the league and for the organizations, and the talk about it as a strategy is ridiculous. If you are a bad team, you get a good pick. That makes sense. But purposely shutting down your players and purposely losing games is a disgrace and impacts the integrity of the whole league. This is much worse than any prop bet scandal. I don't know about that. This is throwing games strategically. Horrible for fans that pay to watch and cheer on their team, and horrible for all the real teams that are competing for playoff spots. Awful behavior that Adam Silver and the NBA will need to stop with massive changes, and I have complete confidence that with his leadership, he will fix it. I don't know about that either. Those of us in a position of influence need to speak out. The only strategy is doing right by the fans, players, and the NBA community. What do you think, man?
Few things.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's easy to not like tanking when you have traded away all of your draft picks in the first round until 2032.
Yep.
Worse than any prop gambling bet.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Chauncey Billups was arrested this year, as well as some active players. And then the leadership of Adam Silver.
Yep.
Lot to be seen still there. I think that it's a little odd coming from Matt Ishbia, but I do like that there is attention on it around the league.
Yep, no doubt. But
also,
yeah, go ahead.
The Suns just suck without trying to. So not this year.
They're better than I thought they'd be
just
this year.
in general.
Yeah,
it seems like,
well.
and I feel like as things go down the home stretch this year, we'll see how that hangs on.
We shall. We'll get back to some of this a little bit later. We're going to have Adrian Denny stop by. We're going to talk some Olympic hockey. The women won gold today, an overtime win over Canada. But the PGA Tour, Genesis, the tournament in Los Angeles. So it's time now for our You Went to Golf PGA Tour update. Swing into You Went to Golf by Worldwide Golf Shops to get custom fit for the new Callaway Quantum Driver. The Callaway Quantum Driver features Tri-Force technology, and the result is a faster face, more ball speed, and a quantum leap in distance off the tee. YouWentToGolf.com. All right, Genesis Invitational. This is a big-time event where a lot of golfers are pumped because they can make a lot of money. Pacific Palisades, California, the Riviera Country Club. Man, I want to play there. Sam Burns is your leader, 3 under par. Akshay Bhatia and Rory McIlroy are also 3 under now. Colin Morikawa, as well as Ryan Gerard, Max McGreevy, and Aaron Ray at 2 under par. Matt McCarty will get you some notables. Sahith Theegala, Denny McCarthy, Tony Finau, 1 under par as well with a good start. So there you go, the PGA Tour, Genesis Invitational, as golf season is here. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. We switch gears and talk some hockey coming up with Adrian Denny on the other side of a quick break right here on ESPN 700. Megan Keller, game winner in overtime, 4:07 on the clock, and the U.S. women top Canada in overtime for the gold medal. Awesome moment. Let's talk some hockey. Let's do it. Adrian Denny, Thursday afternoon. How are you, sir?
Hey, Spence. What's up, man?
Is there anything, well, I'll just say sports. I kind of want to include in life, but is there anything in sports quite like a golden goal overtime moment to win a gold medal?
Against Canada,
Yep.
when you tied the game with less than 3 minutes left from Hillary Knight, maybe the best women's hockey player ever. It was an awesome outing and awesome game for Team USA to win their second straight gold medal over Canada.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And I'm just going to allow you to educate me because I'm not one of the sports talk radio hosts that pretends he's an expert in everything. I'm literally an expert in nothing. But as far as the growth of women's hockey, what has that looked like here in our country over the past, I'll say, 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, it started, I think, 1998. That's when women's hockey got added to the Olympics. And then flash forward to 2002 when we hosted it here in Salt Lake, and all of a sudden you had a rink springing up within 20 minutes of everybody within a 2-hour radius of Salt Lake. And you see, you've seen it grow, and We've watched the University of Utah add a women's team in 2018, and they're right now nationally ranked as high as they've ever been. So it's kind of been contagious, just like hockey has been all throughout the U.S. Right? You put some rinks down, and all of a sudden, 10, 15, 20 years later, you've got stuff like this happening. So it's awesome to coincide with the growth of hockey. And of course, we're in the middle of another phase of it here with the NHL in Utah in season number 2, and our practice rink opening to the public this weekend, the Utah Mammoth Ice Center, which is going to have tons of public ice time and lots of women's hockey and girls hockey there to be included in it. So it's been great to see, and to beat Canada, that's pretty awesome. Those two countries have now played in 8 straight gold medal games. The only 2 matchups we've ever seen in women's hockey in the Olympics has been the U.S. and Canada. And up until Beijing 4 years ago, Canada had won 5 of the first 6 and 5 straight. So good job by the USA women at taking over there. But spent 22 straight international tournaments have resulted in the U.S. and Canada playing each other. So it's been quite the rivalry, and the U.S. dominated the showcase tour that they did before heading over to the Olympics for the second straight year. So good on them.
And oftentimes, historically speaking, seminal moments like we saw today can lead to great things for a sport, both men and women. Ultimately, and whether it's the Olympics or the World Cup, I mean, the World Cup in soccer, last time it was played here in '94, literally led to the creation of MLS. And, the Brandy Chastain game-winning goal led to the creation. Oftentimes people will link the growth of women's soccer to that moment. There is a professional women's hockey league. They added 6 teams. No, they added Seattle and Vancouver for their second season, joining Boston, Minnesota, Montreal, New York, Ottawa, and Toronto. So do you think a moment like this will be a conduit to continued growth for a league that already exists? And is there a chance we might see professional women's hockey one day here in Utah?
Yeah, they've done a great job the last couple of years, Spence, of not only building their individual markets that you mentioned there, but they've done a tour every year as well. And Salt Lake hasn't been included in it yet, but they had a great response in Seattle and Vancouver last season, and all of a sudden those 2 get awarded teams. And as Ryan Smith has said, like, Utah shows up, right? We support stuff. Something comes here, and we make it part of us, who we are, and go all in on it. So anything that comes to Utah is going to be successful, and women's hockey would be no different, but it'd sure be fun if we ever ended up on one of those tour stops where they come and play a game here. And, Hillary Knight plays for Seattle. She's the captain of that team. Megan Keller's on Boston, and both those organizations have done a great job, just in the last couple of weeks here of, trying to capitalize on those moments for organizations that are already off to some really good starts.
All right, moving over to the men's side of things here. And, Adrian, it's funny because I feel like most people are just talking about this tournament with, I'll say, both the assumption and quite frankly, the hope that we're going to see the U.S. and Canada play for the gold medal. And we still very much might, but these other teams also have NHL players, and breaking news, they're also trying to win the gold. So, it's just not a foregone conclusion that we are going to see the U.S. and Canada in the gold medal game. But tell me, let's start on the U.S. side of things, as they're going to get ready to play in their semifinal matchup. And I've got the schedule in front of me. It's going to be Slovakia coming up tomorrow at 1:10 Mountain Time. So I'm going to try to do a radio show while watching a hockey game. But what stands out most about the U.S. team so far? And give us a thought on what we're going to see against Slovakia coming up tomorrow.
Slovakia was not thought to be going anywhere. I think you would have pegged them, out of the 12 teams involved, somewhere between 9 and 12. And they came out of the gates just surprising everybody. And they've got some NHLers on their teams, right? Every country does. Goaltending was thought to be something that was really going to cost them. It's been something that's really kind of pushed them forward. So I think we saw yesterday with the U.S. and Sweden and Canada and Czechia that, okay, these are going to be some really good games here. For Slovakia, I'll be honest with you, Spence, upset stories only go so far, right? Like UMBC upsetting the number one team in the NCAA tournament, right? They're not going to go all the way. It's going to be a feel-good story for a time, and then that's going to be replaced. So I think it's probably now against the U.S. And for Team USA, you saw against Germany, right? Like you've got Leon Draisaitl and Tim Stützle and JJ Peterka, some really good NHLers and some passionate players. And in that game, I think you saw Team USA on Sunday kind of kick it into gear, like, all right, this is, like a phrase I've heard describing it is they just needed somebody to hate, right? Latvia, Denmark, they're good teams, but it's not like you're going head to head against, a team like Germany or Sweden or Finland. And against Sweden, I guess maybe could have used a little more of it too, right? Going up 1-0 and then kind of sitting back. They tied it, and then Quinn Hughes wins it in overtime. But I think for Team USA, if they can just, if the Chucks maybe could rattle some cages, I think something like that will get the USA juiced up for a nice game and hopefully get away from like the 2-1 overtime game against Sweden, because the Swedish are so nice, Spence, unless they're involved in something with Finland. But it kind of, for me, that game yesterday kind of felt more like we're playing Denmark, we're playing Latvia, than we're playing a team like Germany, who was, I believe, they were favored to have the fifth best chance to take a gold medal.
Now, on the other side, I'm just going to ask you the same thing about Canada, who also almost got. I mean, this dream matchup we're all hoping comes to fruition almost didn't on both sides. They're going to take on Finland in their semifinal matchup. So give me your thoughts on Canada's run, and what do you think is going to happen tomorrow against Finland?
Oh, their run that almost ended yesterday in regulation?
Mm-hmm. Well,
gosh. You could feel it coming. You knew Czechia was going to take the lead, and then you knew Canada would win it. That's probably their wake-up call. And I was listening to some other podcasts and some hockey experts today, talking about what we just did a few minutes ago, right? Is foregone conclusion that it's going to be U.S. and Canada in the gold medal games. And one of the guys, Elliot Friedman's like, I just kind of have a feeling that there might be another upset here. Canada should be okay. And whether Sidney Crosby plays, they still should be okay. And that's still up in the air, whether that's true or not, or just what Canada's making public, whether Sidney Crosby returns after that injury he took, or that hit that he took, kind of the awkward collision, if you will, yesterday against Czechia from Anaheim's Radko Gudas, who has gotten under the skins of several NHL players really a week for the last over a decade. But Canada should be fine. They do have some injury concerns in addition to that, too. Nathan McKinnon didn't practice today. Brad Marchand's been kind of off and on, whether he's going to be in the lineup or not to start this tournament. Cale Makar didn't skate today. So Canada might be more banged up than the U.S. And Finland is a team that last time we had Olympians from the NHL involved back in Sochi, they took the bronze. They beat the U.S. 5-0. So Finland's a team that is going to challenge him. But was their wake-up call yesterday? Because we see the talent on that Team Canada roster, and it far exceeds what Finland's bringing to the table.
All right, so if we operate off the assumption that both countries will handle their business coming up tomorrow, and we do see a U.S.-Canada gold medal game, first of all, the attention will be through the roof, and that's going to capture a lot of eyes, obviously with the tournament that we saw last year and the excitement that game brought. This rivalry feels like it might be at an all-time high. I don't know. You'd know better than I would. But how do these two teams match up? If it is a gold medal game between the U.S. and Canada, what does that look like?
Team USA has built their team to beat Canada, right? Like they've taken some constructive feedback that it's not your typical all-star team. It's not the fantasy team that you'd roll out, right? They've constructed it to have, two top forward lines, but with some grit and some physicality and strong defensive play. And it's not just a team that's going to go out and get you fantasy points. So they've done that to beat Canada. So you look at two wild cards from last year's Four Nations face-off, one for Team USA, one for Canada. Quinn Hughes, who scored the game-winning goal yesterday for the United States against Sweden, was not on that Four Nations team because he was hurt. They looked like they were going to bring him in, and then his team at the time, the Vancouver Canucks, is like, whoa, you're not playing for us right now. What are you going to do here? And so that never transpired. So Team USA with Quinn Hughes, that's a huge addition. For Canada, it's Macklin Celebrini, the 19-year-old, who 2 months ago we were wondering, is he even going to be an Olympian? He had 3 points in the game, factoring on 3 of the 4 goals against Czechia yesterday. So those are the two variables. But Team USA, from top to bottom, has been built for the pure reason of beating Team Canada, much to the chagrin of people that couldn't believe Jason Robertson from Dallas isn't on the team. He leads U.S.-born players in the NHL in scoring right now. Cole Caulfield's up there, another, top 6 scorer. He's not on the roster because they put some strategic pieces in there to make sure they were ready to go head-to-head against the skill of the Canadians, with guys like Nathan McKinnon, who's running away with the scoring race in the NHL.
So, of course, we're biased around here, and we love to see Clayton Keller get a little more run, but he is starting to see some ice time. I think he got, 9:51 against Germany, and then 12:51 against Sweden. No points just yet, but tell me what you've noticed, and do you think there's a shot we might see him a little bit more? I'll say the final 2 games. What do you think?
I thought we were trending more in that direction until yesterday, and Team USA kind of shook up the line a little bit that was originally featuring Clayton Keller with Taze Thompson of Buffalo. They won the World Championship together last summer, and Dylan Larkin from Detroit. And then Mike Sullivan changed that up, and Keller was the extra forward, didn't get a lot of playing time in periods 2 and 3, and they won the game. And for me, going into that game yesterday, it was, okay, they put him out for the Germany game, best game for Team USA. They're probably not going to change anything up unless they're down 3-0 in a game and need to get going. And then Mike Sullivan changed the lineup when it was scoreless at the first intermission, which surprised me. So we'll see. It seemed like Clayton has had to really work hard for everything, going back to not making the Four Nations face-off team last year, which is really a sore subject, to being one of the last guys that we were waiting to confirm he was going to get added to the Olympic team. So, you'd love to see him out there, but the way that the game finished yesterday, realistically speaking, it's for me, hockey's win and you're in. When things are going good, you're not changing stuff up, and he didn't play a lot when USA took the lead and won the game yesterday. However, I'll tell you this, Spence, if Keller does not play a lot the final 2 games here of the tournament, the Mammoths play the Minnesota Wild, the second game out of this Olympic break, and their general manager is Bill Guerin, who added Keller to the Olympic team this year but left him off the Four Nations face-off team last year. Keller had a 5-point night against Minnesota, the first game that Utah played him about a week after the Four Nations face-off ended last year. So if he doesn't see a lot of ice time here, the Mammoths play Minnesota, and that's a big game, second game out of the Olympic break, and that he'll be ready to go.
Love hearing that. All right, let's do a little Mammoth specifically, Adrian, before I set you loose. And Adrian Denny is our guest. If you're not following Adrian on social and listening to the podcast and everything that he does, Mammoth Daily, it's your best spot. Proud subscriber. I utilize you to at least make me sound semi-intelligent about this. It's at 801 Adrian Denny on social media, on Twitter. All right, so it's been just kind of a roller coaster, but as of late, the roller coaster has been going in the right direction. I think 12-5-1 between the Christmas break and the Olympic break. They're right on track to qualify for the postseason, which I think is something that we would all certainly enjoy and indicate that this process is working. Here's how I'll ask the question. When the wins come and the results come, they do what? And then when they go the other way, kind of what happens there?
So, as you said, 12-5-1 going into the Olympic break, which is exactly what they wanted to do. It's the season that has been scheduled out, right, from the road-heavy, hard schedule early to being at home in January late, going into the break. And coming out of the break, you can have Logan Cooley expected to be back after missing the last 28 games. Alexander Kerfoot expected to be back as well. So your leading goal scorer at the time of his injury on December 5th is going to be back in the lineup. So for Utah, the challenge is, where do you put him? What do you do with him? Great problem to have. And Kerfoot's a guy that goes back down to your fourth line and is killing penalties. So 2 huge additions there. You start out with the Avs. You start out with the Wild. The trade deadline is just going to be a couple weeks away when we get back started. For Utah, if they make a deal, it's going to go one of 2 ways, Spence. If they get a rental, a player that has, 3 months left on his contract, it's going to be a lower draft pick, 5th, 6th, 7th round, in my opinion. If they take a swing and they bring a guy in with term on his contract with multiple years to be part of the team and continuing to grow, right? You expect to make the playoffs this year. Are you going to be a contender this year? I don't think that's a realistic expectation. You see teams make the playoffs, take their lumps in the first round, learn from it, come back hungrier, and go from there. But if Utah makes a trade to bring in a guy like J.J. Peterka or Mikhail Sergachev, which they've done in the last 2 years, that's where I think you're looking at a higher round draft pick or looking into Utah's prospect pool, which is top 5 in the NHL, but not going to give anything up for a rental that's not going to be part of the long-term future, the long-term core. And for the Mammoths, they were happy last year's Utah Hockey Club, how they played coming out of the Four Nations break. They'd like to replicate that. But Bill Armstrong was happy with how the team came out of the break last year. And to me, that's looking back at the model of what they did. They've got kind of a mini training camp right now for the next week while they wait for their 4 Olympians to join them. This is the 3rd day back at practice, but it's given them, a week to work on special teams, to work on the power play and just some other stuff that they wanted to dial in on, which during the course of the season, when you're playing every other day, when you're traveling, you're learning by video, not necessarily out there for an hour and a half practice.
All right, before I say you lose, I had the opportunity way back in 2010 to see the Winter Classic between the Flyers and the Bruins. So I've only been to one. And when it comes to the magnitude of an event like this, for our market that is now trying to lean into and get to know the sport a little bit, what are we in for when the Avalanche roll into Rice-Eccles Stadium next year for the Winter Classic?
It's going to be a party, and then whether you have tickets or not, it's going to be something you want to be part of. Outside the stadium, in the days leading up to it, there's fan fest events typically try and use the ice for more than just the game itself. But it's going to be a festival. It's going to be a great time up there, and so happy we have it. And in our setting that we do, I've said it, but it's going to look like an AI hockey game, an outdoor game nestled there in the mountains, and we've all been in Rice-Eccles for our games after dark, and you see the intimate setting, and it's going to be intimate for hockey, and it's going to be a great time, and we can't wait for it. For me, Spence, the NHL being here it's year number 2, and for me growing up here and following the NHL from a distance and being in the minor leagues, and now it's here in my hometown. I don't think it's ever going to sink in, and I think for me it's the exact same thing with the Winter Classic and how awesome that's going to be, and to be able to get 50,000 plus people in there, plus everybody else that can come be part of the fun and just the experience. It's going to be another great next step for hockey in Utah.
Where can people go find all your work, Adrian?
Yeah, we've got Mammoth Daily, our podcast you just mentioned, on Apple, Spotify, Utah Mammoth YouTube page, Mammoth Plus, and SEG Plus. We are back from the Olympic break on Monday. And then you can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram at 801 Adrian Denny, and of course, Hockey Night Utah on SEG Media.
Thank you, my friend. Great stuff. Be well. We'll chat soon, okay?
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Spence.
Adrian Denny. U.S. women win gold today with a goal from Megan Keller, 4:07 into overtime, beating Canada. The U.S. men and the Canadians will be in action tomorrow, and if both teams win, a gold medal matchup will come our way. We'll catch a break. A little Utah football and basketball coming up with Jason Patacchio. Brian Dunseth, RSL, opens up on Saturday later on. Busy show. Keep it here. ESPN 700. Brian Dunseth is going to roll by. RSL is back in action. Soccer season is here, even though snow is on the ground. But it's never a bad time to talk some Utah football. Let's welcome in the Utah beat writer from the Salt Lake Tribune, Jason Batacchio. Thursday afternoon. What's going on, Jason?
Nothing much, man. Just at the office right now. Got a round of meetings today, and just basically a run-of-the-mill day. Nothing too crazy.
How do you respond to the accusations that Aaron Falk and Andy Larson are leaving the sports department because of you?
I don't know. They're not leaving because of me, but maybe they did. I can be a lot sometimes. Just kidding. But no, I'm sad to see them go. They've done just tremendous things for me. Both. I sound like an athlete saying this, but both on and off the journalism field, I guess you could say. And Aaron's going to be a tremendous loss, but looking forward to the future and all that great stuff, and couldn't be more thankful for both of those two. It's weird. I mean, both of those guys were, basically, especially Aaron is the one that hired me, so it's going to be weird not having him as a boss anymore. But all we can do is move forward. So that's the message I give off. So,
Jason, Jason, you realize I was joking, right? It was very clear that I was teasing you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I've got your Twitter pulled up, and for Ute fans, if you're looking for good coverage, follow Jason at J_Batacchio. Now, Batacchio is Batacao, so we're clear. Let's talk about some of the stories. Yeah, you got it. Let's talk about some of the stories that you've covered, recently, and then I'll set you loose. Kind of went under the radar screen, but Utah football has had a lawsuit filed against them for discrimination by a former player named Devin Green. Fill us in on the details here.
Yeah, it kind of surprised me. It was kind of brought on my radar. It was filed, I think, on, February 6th. But, former Utah running back that didn't really get much playing time. He came from UNLV. I think it was pretty well broadcasted that he had type 1 diabetes. I mean, the university and the program literally did like an entire video series on it, just interviewing him, kind of him telling his story. But, the allegations in the lawsuit are interesting. I mean, he's basically claiming that the U and several coaches, most notably Mark Atuaya, the running backs coach, Kyle Whittingham, and several members of Utah's athletics administration were, I guess, discriminating against him and not giving him playing time because of his type 1 diabetes diagnosis. So really interesting. It's something that you don't see often, I feel like, with former athlete university versus university lawsuits. And I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But, some of the things that were interesting, I mean, he said that the coaches were hesitant, or at least Mark Atuaya was hesitant to, I guess, include him in football activities, including practice, traveling with the team, going to the team hotel and getting scrimmage reps and all of those things because he had diabetes. And so, the U hasn't filed a response yet, which I'm sure we'll get soon in the coming weeks, maybe even months, because, I'm no lawyer, so I don't know how intricate these processes are going out, but he asked for a jury trial, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes for sure.
Do you have an update? Last time we had you on, we were discussing the private equity deal that everybody is aware of. And of course, the news broke a number of weeks ago now. I think a lot of people just waiting for the gaps to be filled in. How much of this is coming from the PE company? How much of this is coming from local people that were allowed to invest, and what the funds will be used for? Any update in that direction, Jason?
Yeah, it sounds like, the deal will be, at least from the knowledge that I've gathered, I would expect sometime in March. I think a lot of private equity deals, and it's, not exclusive to just this one. It's kind of like building a plane while you're flying it is kind of how it's been described to me. And so, they're working out a lot of details. There's a lot of different things that go into private equity deals other than just, giving a program money. I mean, this is probably as complex as it gets, given that you have a state institution that's also tax-free and has to abide by, tax-free state laws and federal laws. And so, I would expect March. I would also expect, some sort of CEO or something of that sort to be announced in March is kind of the timetable I've been given. But, I don't think we'll get too much of a firm sort of, outlook of what the deal looks like and how much money is being poured into it probably until March is kind of what I gather. But I could also be terribly wrong, and the information I have could be terribly wrong, and it gets announced tomorrow. So don't hold your breath. But no, that's what I'm hearing. I think there's a lot of moving parts with the private equity deal. There's certain donors that want to be involved. I've heard that there have been a select few donors that will be getting sent out sort of like information packets, as it's been kind of described to me, as how to invest, how much they can invest, what the return of the investment might be, something like that. Almost as if it's like a preferred stock. I sound like an economics major right now, but tons of things that are going into it. It's been kind of hush-hush just because I think that they kind of have to be with a deal of this sort. I mean, there's a lot of money at play. And so, it'll definitely be interesting, but I would expect, again, March for that to be kind of announced. But could be earlier, could be later, who knows. But March would, in my opinion, would probably be the time that Ute fans would probably hear something on that. So, yeah.
Curious to what intel, if if any at all, that you have as far as the money that has been spent on the basketball team, the men's basketball team, as far as acquiring talent. I had one person tell me BYU paid more for A.J. DeBonsa than Utah did for their entire roster. And as you watch the team play, and I don't want to be disparaging because they're trying and they got to win the other night, but it's pretty apparent that the talent isn't there for Alex to compete in the Big 12 at a high level. I think they badly need more economic investment. What sort of intel do you have in that direction?
Yeah, I would kind of agree with the same thing. BYU definitely spent more for A.J. DeBonsa than what Utah has for their entire roster. It's excuse me, sorry, I had a cough. I've heard the similar things. I've heard, that Utah is sort of at the bottom of the Big 12 in spending, sort of like they were with last year with Craig Smith. Obviously, the number I think last year was close to $2 million. I think they've had an improvement in that financially. I don't know the exact number, but I would assume it's probably somewhere around, 3.5, 4, maybe more than that. That's kind of what I've heard. And so, it's interesting because, with so many programs spending so much money pre-July 1, there's kind of like, programs that only have revenue sharing funding. And then there's also programs like a BYU or a Texas Tech or, many other programs in the Big 12 that front loaded their rosters with, $4 million plus the rev share. So maybe they have $8 million rosters or 15 or whatever. And so, I think now that we're in the, kind of post-house settlement avenue, it'll be interesting to see how those true above-the-board NIL dollars kind of compare alongside revenue-sharing numbers. I would agree with you, though. I think that Utah will need to see more economic investment into the team to kind of see more from their players, and it'll be interesting. I mean, Alex Jensen has been, open about it. I think he said, a week or two ago that, Arizona, for example, is starting, I think, 3, 5-star freshmen or whatever the number is. And he's like, we don't have the money to kind of go get some of those guys. And so, it's been no secret, as it has been for Utah men's basketball for quite some time over the past few years. Finances have been a struggle for them, but the U is also doing well with donations. I think I saw a number out there the other day that they've raised $63 million. And so, I think it'll be interesting to see how they use those donor dollars. Will they pour it into the basketball program? Will they pour it into the football program? I know the private equity deal is supposed to fund the majority, if not all of the revenue sharing for the next few years, how it's been described to me. And so, they'll foot that bill and then obviously use the LLC to provide above the board true NIL opportunities. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. You can never have enough cash, but what is enough cash in this NIL world that these teams are competing in? Because you think, maybe you get $1.5 more million than you had the previous year, but other teams are now spending $10 million more. And so it's sort of with, I think the saying goes, it's all tides rise, all the boats do too, or whatever I'm trying to say. But yeah, that's my economic lesson for the day. But no, to put it short, yeah, what you've heard is correct.
All tides rise and the boats do too. Is that what I heard you say just now? All right.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm not running on good enough sleep today.
No, you're good. You're good. Final thing, and I'll set you loose. Okay. So, the Huntsman Center is a historic venue with so many great things that have happened. I mean, we have the highest rated both college and NBA basketball game of all time played in our state.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA game was played at the Delta Center between the Jazz and the Bulls. And, of course, Magic and Larry, the Huntsman Center back in the day.
Yep.
But, look, I've been there a couple times this year. And the last time I was there, as I was working my way through my stale hot dog and drinking my room temperature water, I'm like, dude, what? This building so badly needs a facelift. And it sounds like it's coming. Yeah, Jay?
Yeah, no, 100% it is. I mean, if you read my recent story, the Board of Trustees and the athletic director, Mark Harlan, recently announced a new proposal, that they're considering a new proposal. It should be voted on, I think, March 10th of the next Board of Trustees meeting, is what I've been told and have been gathered. But it sounds like the U will be moving towards, a renovations plus, as they call it, where, instead of 15,000 seats, you'll have a 9,000 seat arena, and you'll have more premium seating at the top. And obviously that's going to be, a process, especially just with the age of the arena. I'm sure you have to probably knock down some walls, extend the concourse, it'll be an entire facelift. I would assume, and this is just pure speculation on my point, that the U and the U basketball teams will be playing somewhere else other than the Huntsman Center as that renovation kind of goes down, because it probably will be a very integral it's like a tear down of a building and then you're rebuilding it from, the internal parts that you've had. If you've ever done research on like what happened to Hinkle Fieldhouse or, just other sort of renovations that have happened to older arenas to kind of, they pull all the guts out and then they kind of just have this steel or I guess, concrete thing that is there and they replace it. And so I would expect something similar to happen to the Huntsman. No drawings or concepts or RFPs have been released to the public. I would assume, maybe we get that after the March 10th meeting from the Board of Trustees. But yeah, definitely they're moving in a different direction. I think that the cost of building a new arena was just not feasible in the current economic climate. That's potentially a 1 to 2, maybe even $3 billion venture. And with just kind of going back to everything with NIL and revenue sharing, I mean, that's a lot of money to, spit out. And if you got it, great. Some programs have done it. I mean, look at what Baylor did with their arena. But, I think renovating is probably the cheaper route to go. I think it makes more fans happy because that arena is such a storied venue. I mean, you can't, if you're going to sell the Huntsman on anything right now, it is the history and the significance that it means to this community. I mean, you had a Final Four run, you have, multiple national championships from your gymnastics teams. I mean, you said it best, the Magic and the Larrys. And so, that venue is just so historic. And like you said, it is due for a much, much needed renovation. And I think, downsizing it will make, say if you have a 5,000 fan crowd, it won't look as sparse and drab and dead like it does now with, 15,000 seats. And so I think it'll be good for the U. I think it'll be good for the basketball program. I think, you're probably going to have a louder, more intimate experience just because, if they are moving seats or if they're downsizing, there's probably going to be seats closer to the court. And so, I think the experience will be better. Hopefully I would assume, like you said, with the stale hot dogs that they improve those experiences. I'm not that harsh on the Hunty hot dogs though. I don't think they're that terrible. But maybe that's the 23-year-old college student still reaming around at me. So, yeah, but that's the direction they're going with the Huntsman Center and all of that. So, yeah.
Jason, standing up for those hot dogs is an odd hill to die on, young man.
Hey, man, it's I mean, they're only giving us Papa John's pizza or whatever. I mean, I haven't been to many games this year, but if I'm hungry and I'm like, hey, I'll go get a hot dog. I go get a hot dog. It's not the best meal in the world, but it's also not the worst meal in the world. I've had worse food than the Huntsman hot dogs. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but probably not the best hill to die on, as you said. So.
All right, pal. Well, look, I appreciate your time today. We'll let you get back to it. Be good, okay?
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you as always.
Jason Pataki, Utah beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. So let me get this straight. The Huntsman Center renovation, the plan is to remove 5,000 or 6,000 seats and make it like a 9,000 or a 10,000 seat venue?
And to be clear, I think this is kind of a direction a lot of renovations are going, with people hanging out in their house and watching on TV, moving to more of like a luxury, more boxes, more corporate style amenities, and maybe less of the nosebleed seats that people aren't buying anyway. No curtains, hopefully.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking of this through the prism of attending school at the U, when a basketball ticket, you couldn't find one.
Right. I'm with you.
And now we're just, it's like admitting defeat.
But yeah, different place we're in now.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens? And look, I think if somebody will write him a check, let me repeat, if somebody will write Alex Jensen a check to spend on talent, Al's going to get this thing going, man. It might take 2 or 3 years, maybe even a little bit longer. If he's given patience and economic support, Al's going to get this thing going. So in 3 or 4 years, when that building's packed with a 9,000 seat crowd, people are going to be talking about, we need to expand it. I don't love this. I'm not going to lie. And to your point, I know it's where it's going. And not to be a hypocrite, your boy very much enjoys laying on the couch watching a game, so I don't have to wait in line to go to the bathroom. I'll make a sandwich. Like, I am that guy. But I also enjoy going to games. Like when I went to the BYU Houston game, 2 good teams, college basketball, passionate fans. That is an awesome environment. And we can do that here because we did it here. Going to those games when Majerus was coaching and we had all those pros and Final Four runs, it was an awesome event. Look, nobody gives a rip what I have to say. I'm not in charge. I don't love this. It does feel like an admission of defeat.
I'm with you in a lot of ways. I think that, you can try to accommodate both of those situations and not try to take out seats. But, the reality is they've not had that many people in the arena since like 2012.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Making decisions based on that is something I kind of understand. I wish it were like it looked like in early 2000s, late 90s, but I guess that's the direction we're moving in.
When's the last time,
reportedly,
you had a hot dog at the Huntsman Center?
Last year.
Jason standing up for the hot dogs at the Huntsman Center is a wild, wild thing. And so I went to also the Houston game. I was at the Utah-Houston game. First of all, I need to give a shout out. A Ute fan actually offered me an ice cream bar. He said, Spence, good to see you. I bought you an ice cream bar.
That's nice of him.
I did not take it.
What?
I didn't want ice cream. It was late. Porter, come on, man.
That's rude.
Oh, as somebody, okay, calm down, Mr. Lipids. As somebody that has a very strict diet, you understand that eating ice cream that late is probably not the right move. The point is, it was very kind. I just wanted to say thank you to him.
I would have accepted that ice cream bar.
All right, well, you're a better person than I am. But prior to the ice cream, I did need some dinner. The hot dogs aren't good, man. And also, I may have ordered a Sprite that didn't have the, what do they call the fizz in soda?
Oh, it was out
carbonation. Yeah, it was a flat Sprite.
Yeah.
It was a flat Sprite and a hot dog with a stale bun, and it was undercooked. I took 2 bites and I threw it away. Like, the venue badly needs some love all around, not just the building, but they need the concessions. It feels like you're either in high school or in 1950. Like, they badly need to upgrade this.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of the focus. It's going to elevate the experience, get the corporate stuff there, get the box seats a reality, and then the thing is there, if you elevate the experience, more people will come. So if you're eliminating seats,
Yep.
It's hard. But I guess I'll wait until I see the plans. And then the thing I'm glad about, Spence, is that decision makers up there realize that keeping the Huntsman Center and building upon it and updating it was the answer, because I can tell you that wasn't necessarily the lean based on some conversations I had a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. All right, we're going to bring in Dunny to talk some RSL as the lads are back, taking on Vancouver on Saturday. But before we do that, do I call this breaking news? I don't think I do. Sham Shararni, a couple of tweets here that I'll read, then we'll break. Commissioner Adam Silver informed the league's 30 general managers on Thursday that the NBA plans to make anti-tanking rule changes for next season. Sources tell ESPN. Stakeholders have intensified dialogue about combating tanking. And so here are some details. Okay, we'll just read a few of these. Multiple sources with knowledge of Thursday's GM meetings, as well as late January competition committee meetings, told ESPN that the following concepts have been discussed to curb tanking. First-round picks can be protected only top 4 or 14 plus. Well, that's a problem because there have been hundreds of first-round picks already traded that have protections on them. So let me repeat. First-round picks can be protected only top 4 or top 14 plus. So no protections between 5 and 13. That's where the Jazz find themselves this year. Lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline or at a later date also won't work, because if there's a window to tank and there's incentivization to be bad, teams are going to be bad. No longer allowing a team to pick top 4 in consecutive years and or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. That's dumb. Teams can't pick top 4 the year after making the conference finals. That's dumb. Lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. That's somewhat interesting. Lottery extended to include all play-in teams. That's not bad. Flatten odds for all lottery teams. Obviously, that should be done. All right, so a few decent ones, a couple of dumb ones. I don't know that Adam Silver's good at this. But Breaking Benjamin's coming to town. I know you already knew that. Breaking Benjamin is taking over the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on September the 30th. Tune in to the Sean O'Connell Show this week for your chance to win a pair of tickets. More details at ESPN700sports.com. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Dunny up next on ESPN 700. Porter, do me a favor during this segment. Do not pop on into my ear and tell me to tell Dunny to wrap up and tell me that I only have 5 more seconds and throw to a VOT or an SOT. Do me a favor and just let me interview Dunny. Is that cool?
We'll see.
Okay.
If he goes on too long, or you, we do got a clock.
All right, fair enough. Radio's a little more relaxing, Brian Dunseth, isn't it?
You know what's great about today, Spence?
Say again?
Was that I said, you know what was great about today, Spence?
What's that?
Was that it was watching you in a moment where you were just slightly uncomfortable and you were just a little bit concerned and you just wanted to make sure that you could figure out a way to get through it. And you did a phenomenal job today without having like a real dress rehearsal. It was fantastic to watch us figure this out.
So, translation, you very much enjoyed me watching me squirm in my own skin. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, it just it was awkward enough that I knew the sweats were starting to happen, and I only respect it because and enjoyed it just a little bit because I too have been in that moment of it's a little bit unfamiliar, and yet we're just gonna fake it till we make it. And I thought we came through relatively unscathed for our first television show of the year.
Now it is in the hands of our director, producer, and editors to splice together what we did. I'll just leave it there. But I will use this opportunity to tell everybody how pumped I am to be working with you again. 20 years ago, you and I got started in this business on RSL broadcasts, and we since have taken different paths, but it's going to be a lot of fun to work with you once again. So 10:35 tonight on KMYU. And I got to say thanks for filling up most of the space, man, because I was just playing traffic cop today.
No, listen, man, I know that we've both gone from, and again, 20 years, by the way, 20 years
Wild.
From doing pre and post game for Real Salt Lake back in the day up at Rice-Eccles Stadium. No, I think the fun thing about this is that, here we are talking about our loves of Real Salt Lake and trying to do a great job in verbalizing what's happening at the club right now in a really, monumental moment. But at the same time, I do understand what it's like being on camera and trying to run the show. You do such a great job on your show. I'm used to hosting on SiriusXM, Counterattack Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in the mornings over on SiriusXM FC. But there's that internalized moment where you know that everyone's looking at you and realizing, man, maybe you don't know what you're doing. And those are the fun parts that you and I we're going to do a new show. It's going to be different than talking Real, talking RSL ever was. So I'm excited and I'm glad we got our sea legs underneath us for the very first day.
For sure. And I'm pumped to learn a new skill, man. I've been doing radio 22 years now. And so to learn the TV side of things, I think is going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's start here, Dunny. It's very obvious what the issue has been for RSL the past few years. And they just haven't been able to score goals. They were last in the West in goals scored last year, tied for second to worst in all of MLS. And we know that when Pablo has talent, the attacking prowess is there. They literally set a team record for goals scored not too long ago. What gives you the most confidence that the attack for this club will be much improved this season?
Because they have, I think, a collective group of players after divesting of the last 24 months behind the scenes of uncertainty of investment, clarity in decision-making with Miller Sports Entertainment Group and Jason Christ coming in line and overseeing, the umbrella effect of both the men's side of Real Salt Lake and the women's side at Utah Royals. The investment, and I think I should probably start by, I think the departures of Nate Miller as an assistant coach, Anthony Pulis being pushed into the first assistant role with a cascading effect underneath with a newer coaching staff, with Ojeda, with Vera, with Diogo Gonzalez departing. I think that kind of opens up a player power that's going to really push this group in a different direction. Offloading of some guys and Rowan Cruz just not good enough. And then spending $14 million on this roster, whether you talk about Lucas Engel, you're talking about Sanabria, the Uruguayan international with hopes of playing in the World Cup this summer. Arias coming in, a Colombian that's already won at 22 years of age, 5 domestic titles with Atletico Nacional. Steinhaus, the Dutch number 6 coming in, and a different look than maybe the athleticism that we saw last year with Ojeda and Emeka Nelly and Bill Caliskin. And then Guilavogui underneath Olatunji and off the shoulder maybe of Gozo and Diego Luna in that pocket. I just feel like when we talk about competition for roster spots and effectiveness on the field of play, it's going to take a couple weeks because there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be done, and that's not just through Real Salt Lake, that's through the entirety of the league. Just trying to make sure that all the correct paperwork and work permits are done and dusted. But yeah, to your point, I feel like this team is so much better equipped to compete for the Western Conference since that first half of the season with guys named Andres Gomez and Chicho Arango and Anderson Julio up top.
Okay, so as you alluded to, I'm just going to have you walk us through this when it comes to the new players. And when it comes to and as you referenced earlier when I was chatting with you today, this is a league-wide issue as it pertains to teams trying to get players to get visas and such and permits to work in the United States after signing them. And, you know, the immigration's a very hot topic right now. But when it comes to the new players, let's just kind of go over this one by one, and you let us know when we're going to see them, whether it's Guilavogui or Stein Spearings or Juan Manuel Sanabria, Juan Jose Arias, Lucas Engel, the 6 new players, and you kind of alluded to some of them. How many of them are on the ground? Who will we see on Saturday? And then who is not in that group that and what does the process play out until they're all here, if that makes sense?
Yeah, Lucas Engel has been with the team throughout the entirety of the preseason. And I think very quietly, I was saying this today on the show with you, that I think he could be the most important addition in the summer, or excuse me, in this winter, because I think you're going to see like a 7 out of 10 performance week in, week out on that left-hand side of Justin Glad. Arias will be competing with DeAndre Yedlin for that right-hand side. I think you can also see Yedlin at times play wide right, where Xavier Gosa is going to be playing. Spearings is, we'll see. You know, a lot of people are trying to figure out, with the departure of Ojeda, does he have the same athleticism? I would say no, but I don't think that's necessarily a downgrade in position. I think with the adjustment in the formation, he could be more of a truer 6 with the idea of Caliscan or Emeka Nelly or Luca Moisa playing a little bit higher in a transition 8 type of role. Sanabria is with the group. I mean, I was using him as prep for the Uruguay team that played the United States and subsequently lost against them in Tampa last fall. And Sanabria is going to be one of these players that is going to have a great opportunity to go to the World Cup, and we'll see if he's ultimately chosen. But his numbers are off the charts in terms of his ability to get up and down that left-hand side and match Gozo on that right-hand side. Guilavogui, I'm assuming and I'm hoping that he's going to be available in Vancouver, but the timeline has been extended probably more than anybody wanted. And there's also a conversation in there somewhere between the work permits and the paperwork needed for the United States. There's an extra add-on for that going to Canada. So less than ideal for the first game being in Vancouver for Real Salt Lake. And then Olatunji got his paperwork done and he's been with the team. So I would say in an ideal world, we're probably looking to judge this group based on the strongest possible starting 11 somewhere around week 4, week 5, when full fitness, sharpness, and everybody's in with the group. And I should also add Sergi Solans, the young Spaniard who was drafted 2 years ago, but spent last year at UCLA as the number 3 goal scorer in the entire nation in college soccer. He's getting his paperwork done in Spain as well. So the difficulty in all of this is that some of the players that were on track to get their green cards, that's been delayed because of everything that's happening behind the scenes and what's happening in the United States with work permit status and getting everything done. But it's not just isolated with the Real Salt Lake. Virtually every team is dealing with what was planned and what they thought was structured in terms of timing. It's one of the reasons why, if you're really paying attention to the MLS After Dark, while we're seeing so many international roster spots traded at such significant value right now, is because a lot of this planning is being heavily pushed back, which means to get players on the field, you're going to have to make adjustments to what maybe your 1-year plan, your 3-year plan, and your 5-year plan was. politically with what's happening in the U.S. right now.
Little bit of a non sequitur, and we'll get back here to RSL in a moment. But the way you were describing that just kind of jarred something in my brain. And I'm sure there's plenty of information on this online or news outlets. What sort of impact does the current climate have with the upcoming? The World Cup is 112 days away. Are teams running into travel issues? Are fans coming from overseas electing not to based off certain things that are happening in our republic right now?
Yeah, listen, I wherever you fall in line, whether on the left or the right, I think it's obvious that this is a really hot button right now for a lot of people. When we're talking about the relationship of what maybe FIFA President Gianni Infantino has with current President Donald Trump, it's one that seems to be a very close relationship, and they've kind of worked through. And I talked to you last summer when I was doing the FIFA Club World Cup. And Donald Trump and Infantino walked out onto the field post-match to hand out the FIFA Club World Cup trophy to Chelsea Football Club. And the oohs, the ahs, the stares, the confusions, maybe some of the proud celebratory moments, that was certainly a wave inside of that stadium, depending upon, what your voting values look like. I don't see a world in which things are slowed down. I certainly can see a world where there's the threat of certain teams or certain paperwork being threatened or slowed down or even denied. But this is the World Cup. And my hope is that there's a step back and a bigger understanding of what this means, as we all saw back in, if you're as old as you and I are, Spence, we saw the effect, the cause and effect of the 1994 World Cup in the United States. And the pendulum swing very, very hard in favor of the game of soccer being launched. And we saw that with Major League Soccer in 1996. And we've seen an incredible amount of growth. But yeah, I would say it's not just for soccer. I think for any sport that is heavily influenced by athletes from around the world, these are some of the things that we're seeing, where maybe something that would take less than a week is now taking maybe 2 to 3 weeks to a month. And we've certainly seen Major League Soccer teams and MLS head coaches reference some of the reasons why players were not available early in the season, because, whether that was being away in their respective countries and waiting for the paperwork to get done, and or these players not being with the team and training over the duration of that time, it was certainly some obstacles that they felt that they needed to publicly talk about, because it was things privately that they were dealing with.
Didn't FIFA make up some award or something to give Trump to be like, hey, let's just have a decent event? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, it was something having to do with some award of peace, okay. I think, that Infantino had created. But listen, I think you've got code of ethics, you've got, Infantino running as his own man. And at the end of the day, I think he realizes, and he's had, relationships with what we've seen in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, with Vladimir Putin in Russia. He has tried to minimize the political heat and look towards more of the bigger picture while aligning himself with maybe some of the more controversial figures around the world.
I see. Okay, let's get back to RSL. I want to ask you about two players. One, of course, obviously is going to be Diego. Now, the 3-5-2 formation, as you kind of alluded to earlier, and we'll discuss tonight at 10:35 on KMYU Talking Real. Part of this, and Pablo was on the show this week, is now kind of giving the keys to the kingdom to Diego, who certainly has earned it, and you've had a front row seat to watch this kid evolve. So give us your thoughts on what you think Diego as the 10 looks like. And everyone I talked to is speaking in glowing terms about Xavier Gozo, who kind of burst on the scene a year ago. So your expectations this season for these two players?
For Diego Luna, and I think this is the divesting of Diogo Gonçalves, who I would call an NPC, a non-player character, with regards to his status as a designated player. He never wanted to be the man. He wasn't the man, could never be the man for Real Salt Lake. And I think that much to the frustration of Diego Luna, looking at a guy being given that number 10 position, that number 10 jersey, and thinking to himself, hold on a second, I can do that better, put the trust in me. Well, if he did indeed have those type of feelings, he certainly now is under the gun and under the pressure of being given the number 10 jersey. Everybody knows he's the man. I had conversations with him before the flight back from Columbus after playing against Japan for the U.S. men's national team. And you could feel the weight of him being a superstar in the United States. You know, coming off the Gold Cup performance, I was sat next to him in the airport, and the amount of people that wanted photos with him for their TikToks, their Instagrams, their posts on Twitter. I mean, it was a nonstop rotation of people that just wanted to take a picture with Diego. And he went from literally, I think overnight, that span of that Gold Cup, where everybody knows who he is the moment that he walks through the door, because it's unmistakable, his presence. So I think twofold. Number one, it's very clear that Jason, Pablo, Kurt have given him the keys to the Ferrari this year. He's the undisputed number 10. It is his position, and it is his pressure as being MLS young player and two-time MLS All-Star and U.S. men's national team player that he is going to be judged by goals and assists and the effectiveness in the offensive phase of play. Obviously, the pressure is not only with Real Salt Lake, it's to continue to convince Mauricio Pochettino that he is deserving of a roster spot, if not a starting spot, for the World Cup this summer for the United States. Xavier Gozo is going to be, I think, the pressure on Xavier is going to be different than Luna. Gozo's a different profile. As a winger, he's going to remind a lot of people of the value that Real Salt Lake earned with the sale of Andres Gomez to Rennes a couple of summers ago, which I'll remind people was $13 million. So inadvertently, Real Salt Lake has also put pressure on themselves by selling Gomez for $13 million. Then at a bare minimum, you've got to be talking about if you are going to sell Luna after the World Cup, if you are going to sell Gozo after the World Cup. Those will be the two hottest commodities right now that we are pontificating about. And ultimately, you've got to come in with a number similar or a smaller number with a higher sell-on value on the backside, with a retention of 20 to 25% sell-on fee somewhere in there. But Gozo, because of his athletic profile, is going to be looked at by a lot of clubs from around the world. Diego's a little bit of a different dynamic because he's a number 10 and he's a little bit smaller of a profile physically. I think there's a couple of leagues that I think you could see him in Italy. I think you could see him in Holland. I think you could see him in Spain. But would those higher echelon teams be interested with the cost that's associated with that type of player? As I say that, Obed Vargas from the Seattle Sounders just was sold to Atletico Madrid. And has already played in 5 of the 6 games that he's been available. And he's a player that could have been available for the United States, but chose to represent Mexico. I don't think that's a big loss right now for the U.S., but I do think in the next cycle, it could be a big loss. So if he can follow the footsteps similar to Obed Vargas, who's more of a defensive midfielder type of player versus Luna being an attacking player, at Atletico Madrid, there's also a player named Thiago Almada, who was the number 10 at Atlanta United, who has a very similar size as Diego, who's now playing for Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid. So 2 different profiles, 2 different opportunities, but 2 players that I think are going to be similar in the desire of a lot of interest. And I think there'll be a lot of kicking the tires where Kurt Schmidt is going to have to field a lot of calls about the evaluation of those 2 players and what it would take for them to potentially pry those players away from the Real Salt Lake.
I want to be clear. My knowledge as it pertains to what a formation means is limited to FIFA. And all I know is when I used to play 3 in the back, Kamrani scored like 8 goals on me. So is there is there a danger here? Because we need more goals, but here's the other thing that I know about soccer. You do not want the other team to score goals. Defensively, is this a little bit concerning, playing 3 in the back? What do you think?
It could be at times in transition moments. But I think there's nuance in this conversation because I think, Spence, when we put up the starting 11 and we create a graphic, this is maybe what we're talking about, ideal with the ball in the attacking phase of play, right? Real Salt Lake with the ball, going at any player at America First Field, any team at America First Field with the ball and really forcing them deeper in their own half and trying to keep the game in front of them. I think in the beginning, Real Salt Lake will be at its most vulnerable to giving up goals in transition moments to the opponent when they have the ball, meaning that they're getting numbers forward, they're overloading in the attacking phase of play, and if a pass is cut out or deflected, there will be teams like LAFC and Sunny and Bouanga that will look to hit them in transition moments and use their speed and athleticism to punish people. That's why I'm really interested to see how Stein Spearings, the Dutchman, comes in and replaces Ojeda, because I feel like from a projection standpoint, he will be more of a holding, sitting, and waiting type of midfielder to protect the back three from moments in which those turnovers could be catastrophic transition moments for the opponent. The other thing, Olatunji, comes over. The Nigerian has size and presence, and he's going to cause a lot of havoc for defenders to think about their positioning. Incredibly intelligent player up top. And I think you're going to see Guy Lavogui a little bit deeper and sometimes almost parallel to Diego Luna in the buildup. So where he's got a little bit more freedom, and I think because of Olatunji's physical presence, there will be a lack of, double down pressing and focus, which will allow Luna and Guy Lavogui even more time and space. And if that does happen, then you're going to talk about Sanabria on that left-hand side and Gozo on that right-hand side, being able just to open up and to play into the shadows and into the creases behind the back line, which is, as a center back, I would hate to deal with Olatunji, but I would hate even more to be thinking about the second runs, either from the wide spots or from Luna and Guy Lavogui underneath, because then you're just picking your poison. You're just in the midst of havoc. So to go back to three in the back, Engel and Yedlin are highly experienced, playing off the shoulders of Glad. If Arias is in there off the right shoulder of Glad, you've got size, you've got athleticism, and players that can deal with pace should those turnovers, transition into attacking moments for the opponent.
Moving to Saturday, and let's remind people, 5:30 Apple TV, and the paywall is no longer, okay? That's an important thing. So if you haven't had a chance, and I think you guys do a fantastic job. I mean, I really want local broadcast back, but the production value, everyone involved, our buddy Sam Stay-School, it's really high quality. So if you haven't watched it because you didn't want to pay for it, you don't have to this year. But let's dig into, only Chicago scored more goals a year ago than Vancouver, who put 66 up. They finished second in the Western Conference in the table. They nearly won MLS Cup, and they were knocking on the door with CONCACAF. This is a tough team. It's a tough opponent. Match 1 RSL, Dunny. What are you expecting to see?
Yeah, and to be clear, as long as you have an Apple, for your Apple device and logging into Apple TV, you can watch MLS, and you're going to be able to watch F1 as well this year if you're into F1 racing. Listen, I think San Diego and Vancouver were the biggest surprises in the Western Conference. And Vancouver did an amazing job with a new manager and making the run in CONCACAF Champions Cup. By the way, Vancouver has the most hellacious schedule of travel with flight distance. They always log more miles than anybody else in Major League Soccer. So not only were they in CONCACAF Champions Cup and lost in the final, and unfortunately dealing with a bout of food poisoning down in Mexico, but they made it all the way to the Western Conference final and would have won the Western Conference had they not taken an early red card in the final game of the season to FC Dallas, who was widely regarded as one of the worst in the Western Conference last year. That propelled FC Dallas into the playoffs, and that meant that Vancouver lost the Western Conference regular season title to San Diego, and Mikey Veras and company had a great year. What's interesting about Vancouver is they did it without arguably their best player in Reinbold. Halfway through the season, that they had Thomas Muller, German international, Bayern Munich great, and all of a sudden Brian White returns from injury. Ali Ahmed, who has since been sold over to Norwich City, and Sebastian Berhalter, U.S. international, son of Greg Berhalter, former coach of the U.S. men's national team, and a guy named Andres Cubas. And then on top of that, having an MLS Defender of the Year and a really strong goalkeeper, they were just a solid team. And they had enough self-belief and combativeness that they made life difficult for a lot of teams, whether at home or on the road. So I think everyone projects LAFC, San Diego, Vancouver, not necessarily in that order, to be the best in the Western Conference. But my prediction, even though I didn't make it publicly on MLSsoccer.com, is that Real Salt Lake is a top 4, top 5 team in the Western Conference this year.
Nice.
So I think these are moments where Pablo, dealing with all of the all of the paperwork issues and just trying to make sure that he's got a team that understands what they're trying to do on the field. As I say that, and you're introducing players later than you wanted to introduce them, I was saying this to you. It is a great opportunity for all of those players who feel as though they're starting 11 players to prove that they're starting 11 players. And then when these new signings end up showing up and acclimate themselves, it'll be the job of these guys that are getting opportunities who have proved in the preseason that they are valuable enough to deserve a starting spot on match day one to make sure they don't lose it. So there might be some names and some faces that you're going to get used to in these first couple of weeks in terms of quote-unquote Real Salt Lake starters. But I also think the challenge is with this new atmosphere from the coaching staff, with the subtraction that ends up being a huge addition in the offseason from, I think, a culture standpoint, from a player power standpoint, from a camaraderie standpoint. All of a sudden, what I would say the minimal time I've been around this group is that there's a spirit around this team that I really, really like. And I think that spirit and combativeness and level of play is going to mean that Real Salt Lake is going to surprise a lot of experts when we're talking about heading into the break of the World Cup.
Love hearing that. The MLSsoccer.com shot. Who was that at and why? That was at somebody, Donnie. What was that at?
No, not necessarily. It's the reason why I hate being a part of it, only because I think with the window being open until basically the third week of March, and then going into a summer transfer window, how can you ever make a very real prediction about a team without understanding who they truly are and knowing that in the summer they could effectively go out and spend $26 million on Sung Hyun Min from Tottenham Hotspur, to be able to sign a Thomas Muller, from Bayern Munich, for Rodrigo de Paul to show up and not be a designated player for Inter Miami from Atletico Madrid after participating in the FIFA Club World Cup. I just think there's too many outliers in the idea of trying to make a prediction for an entire season so early before we're halfway through February.
No, well said. Last thing, we'll end on this. It will be a historic day, April the 22nd, when Lionel Messi will come to Utah to play soccer in Sandy, which is a wild sentence. The number I've been told is $4 to $5 million added to the bottom line for RSL. They, of course, have tied some ticket packages together, 4-game packages, season ticket packages, which is what you do. My question is this. What happens if an hour before he decides he has a headache?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the threat, right? I think he's going to be in Colorado at the weekend, and they're going to the Broncos Stadium. So they've moved, and this is where I give Real Salt Lake ownership and decision makers a lot of credit, because while tickets will be a little bit more expensive, they're keeping the value of America First Field as opposed to taking it to a bigger location where they can put more butts in seats and try to completely maximize the value. So, listen, this is the same conversation we had with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, that we had with Thierry Henry, that we've had with Lionel Messi. For all the superstars that have come to the United States, there's always that chance, right, that someone might not make the trip. We don't know about injuries. A guy could pull up lame in the game before. There's always that threat. The reality is that Lionel Messi, for me, all due respect to Pele, Maradona, to Cristiano Ronaldo, he's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. I've been lucky enough to call his games both for Argentina and for Miami. I did it throughout the course of the FIFA Club World Cup. He is a special, special player. And the opportunity, I would equate it to when your dad brought Real Madrid here. I remember saying back then, Spence, that'd be like taking the New York Yankees to Timbuktu and playing a game. To have the Galacticos here in the United States, to have them specific in Salt Lake City, was unlike anything I could have ever imagined. So for Real Salt Lake to wait its turn and have the opportunity to host Inter Miami on Wednesday, April 22nd, which, by the way, I didn't know then when I worked with you earlier this afternoon, but I know now that TL Max Bredos, and I will be on the call for that game here in Salt Lake.
Oh, nice. Hell yes.
That we're going to be really, really excited about being part of that broadcast. And I can't wait for everybody, not just in the Salt Lake area, but the entire region, Utah, Idaho, Nevada, Wyoming, everybody involved, that they're going to get an opportunity to potentially grab some tickets and watch Inter Miami and Lionel Messi at home against Real Salt Lake. It's going to be an extraordinary moment, and I think one of those to the time capsule of RSL history.
Donnie, good stuff, man. Appreciate the time. 10:35 tonight. Talking Real is back, buddy. Be good. We'll chat soon, okay?
Cannot wait to watch. I'm a little bit nervous to go back and watch, but I can't wait, my man. I'm excited to work with you throughout the season.
My guy, Brian Dunseth, we started in this business together 20 years ago on RSL broadcasts, and now we're reunited. We did our first TV show today, and I'll say that it might look like it was my first time doing that. So 10:35 on KMYU. Porter, thank you for not yapping in my ear about throwing to a VOT or an SOT or telling me I have 10 seconds left or telling me that I need to tell Dunny to shut up. So I appreciate that.
We do need a wrap.
Giving me PTSD. We'll see how it goes tonight. Hopefully I just improve at it. It's a new skill. Excited to learn it. All right, before we catch a break, new client on the show, and I'm pumped to be working with them because I can have some intimate knowledge. They are people that have helped me get into shape for a couple of years now. So if that's a goal of yours, as we enter springtime now, maybe you had a goal or an intention, I think the kids say these days, to get back in shape for the new year or lose a little weight. Well, if you haven't necessarily hit your goals, it's all right. Take heart because Game Day Men's Health, they've got your back. All right. So a couple of years ago, decided I wanted to get into the best shape of my life, started working out, eating clean. After a couple months, I was disappointed with lack of progress. And I had a friend recommend Game Day Men's Health. They're giving you the very same offer they give me, which is the following. Number one, a free consultation with no obligation, by the way. So you might as well go do that. They'll take a little bit of blood work. Then they're going to go over your levels with you. And they're going to say, okay, this looks good and we can help you over here. And for me, supplemented some testosterone, utilized some peptides. They've got semaglutide, trizipatide, all the weight loss stuff that everybody talks about. They have that. And with this deal, if you need that, this is the cheapest way to get it, okay? So free consultation, number one. But number two, here's the kicker. You're getting 50% off of their membership all year long. And it is only February, so you got 9-10 months of discounts. Might as well take advantage of it. My favorite part is they follow up. I went in last week for a blood test, and they showed me my progress and showed me where they could help out. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Schedule that free consultation, but be sure to tell them you heard me talking about it. Say, I heard Spence talking about this, and then they'll kick in that 50% discount. Our friends at Game Day Men's Health. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. More next right here on ESPN 700. It is indeed sports court time. We do it every Thursday, right about now, with the good friends over at Handy Garrett and Preston. Gentlemen, happy Thursday. How we doing?
Hey, Spence. How's it going?
All good here. So we talked about this story when it broke, and I'm going to let you guys kind of take us through this because it is pretty wild. So UVU has responded to the WAC's $1 million lawsuit and has now filed for a restraining order. It seems like this is getting ugly. What's the latest?
Yeah, if you read through the pleadings, it is kind of ugly and petty. But this, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and there are three things going on. The first thing that's going on legally is the WAC sued UVU, and this grows out of a claim that, hey, you're leaving the WAC conference and going to the Big West. There's an exit fee of $1 million. Well, we've read where there's some correspondence going back and forth between the president of UVU and the WAC commissioner, where the president of the UVU says, we ain't paying this. And the WAC commissioner says, well, as part of the deal is, if you don't pay this, your players don't get to participate in any postseason play, meaning the WAC tournament or possibility of going to the NCAA tournament. This is really important because upcoming is the WAC women's track and field stuff coming up, as well as both the WAC tournaments for the women's and men's basketball team. And the claim by the WAC commissioner is, hey, this is part of your contract. You're breaching the contract, and you need to pay it. So they sued in federal court in Texas, and that's the last we heard about it. But now what's happened was we've heard that UVU has filed a motion in Texas to dismiss it based on jurisdictional grounds, but UVU is trying to get a hold of this, and through the Attorney General, who represents the state of Utah and the state agency, including UVU, has filed a lawsuit. They've got ahead of this and filed a lawsuit claiming that the WAC has, in fact, breached the contract. And their basis for this is they said, hey, the WAC was in trouble a couple of years ago, and it looks like it might have disbanded and fallen apart. So the WAC came to all the schools and said, hey, will everyone sign a commitment agreement? And the commitment agreement was, you stick around for a couple of years and, and let's see what happens. And as part of that, you won't leave till 2026. And part of it, you need to notify us a year in advance if you are going to leave. And part of the other part was that if you sign this commitment agreement and you leave for another conference, that will include reduced exit fees. You'll also get to participate in distributions for the conference. Well, in the meantime, so that's the claim by UVU. We've complied with this. You're in breach of contract. And they've got ahead of it. In addition to filing the complaint, they filed a motion for a temporary restraining order. And what that is that's just a temporary thing. And this is pretty urgent. Why? Because if this doesn't get in place, the WAC saying you don't even get to participate in these tournaments. And I don't know what would happen, Petty. They wouldn't even schedule a game for them in these tournaments or wouldn't let them in the building. I don't know. But so they want a temporary restraining order. And usually a temporary restraining order is pretty informal. It doesn't require a hearing. But on the back of that, UVU has said, once we get the temporary restraining order, to get that in place, we want a preliminary injunction. And that's a more permanent deal. And what a preliminary injunction does is it's in place while the parties litigate. They basically go to the court and say, can we get this? And down the road, we can fight about all this stuff, whether we're in breach of contract or whether the WAC is in breach of contract. And it's important because the standard of a preliminary injunction, here's what they have to show. They have to show that UVU will suffer irreparable harm in the absence of injunctive relief. And the irreparable harm really is, hey, our players who have worked hard all these years and they're doing really well, you're going to yank this out from under them and they aren't going to participate in conference tournaments with the chance of going to the nationals. Second, it shows that the irreparable harm, meaning the harm of players not being able to play in this, outweighs anything that the WAC is saying of a breach of contract. Kind of like saying, hey, the players not playing is a big deal, and if we owe you the $1 million or we negotiate this down the road, we can do that, but let's put this on hold and let them play. And then another part of a preliminary injunction, you have to say, UVU is claiming that, hey, if this is in place, we believe that in the end we're really going to prevail, on this claim of breach of contract and a claim for promissory estoppel, because the court will look at this and go, well, should we really grant a preliminary injunction if down the road you're going to lose this argument? So what I think is going to happen, and it's smart. They're in Utah. They're in the 4th District in Utah County now. And the judge is going to probably lean towards, hey, we don't want to, let's grab the preliminary injunction, because if we don't, it really is irreparable harm to these athletes. And, this can play out later. So it's interesting to see, and I anticipate they'll get the injunction. We'll probably be talking about that later.
All right, Garrett, over to you, buddy.
Well, part of the issue here is, with UVU wanting to leave, and they're basically saying, hey, the WAC's not acting in good faith on this, right? They're saying, hey, UVU, you signed this commitment, you can't leave. But part of the allegation is that behind the scenes, the WAC is actively working really to get some of these Utah schools out and just stick with the Texas-based schools and form some other alliances. So as we kind of know now in the modern day of college athletics, I think there is horse trading and negotiating going on all of the time between schools and conferences, and everybody's looking for, a new option potentially, and UVU's doing that in looking at, a Big West invitation. And so, but these Texas schools, that's part of UVU's argument, is they're saying, hey, you guys, you can't come here and hold us to this contract that you were already in breach of by going ahead with your own plans that would upend the conference.
My goodness. Well, we'll see how it plays out. Certainly feel bad for the athletes that may have some things compromised for them. But moving over to a story out of the NFL where sneakers and steaks are involved. Okay, so Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce facing a trademark suit over a steakhouse they opened in Kansas City. What's going on here?
Yeah, this is kind of a funny one. I mean, so this is Mahomes and Kelce team up to start a steakhouse in Kansas City, and it is called 1587 Prime because Mahomes is number 15 and Travis Kelce is number 87. I mean, this is really, clever stuff here from these two players. And so they've got 1587 Prime, and they open their steakhouse. And next thing you know, they're being sued by a company called 1587 Sneakers. And this is a sneaker company. I don't know if you've heard of them. I had not. They claim that they are a U.S.-owned, designed, Asian-American sneaker company, right? And so they're claiming trademark infringement. They're saying, hey, we were here first. We had 1587 before you did. And I had to look into this a little bit, but why 1587 is significant to this sneaker company is they claim that is the year that Filipino sailors arrived in California. Something else I did not know. So they're both claiming 1587, and some of this involves a race to the trademark office and kind of who got there first. The sneaker company, they did file a trademark application last October. They were in business before the steakhouse opened. However, 1587 Prime, the steakhouse, they had filed their application a couple of years ago. So here we go, this lawsuit on this trademark issue. We've talked a lot about these trademark cases over the years on Sports Court, but the case is just getting going, but I do expect a settlement, and maybe we'll see Patrick Mahomes wearing 1587 sneakers next year. I don't think so. Just kidding. But,
what do you think, Preston? Over to you, bud.
I pulled up a couple of articles on this on Kelce and Mahomes, and I started digging into one. There's actually another lawsuit going on. Noble 33, who's this hospitality group who partnered with Kelce and Mahomes, to do the Restaurant Prime 1587 Prime. They're actually being sued for fraud, embezzlement, discrimination, and retaliation by their CFO, who apparently uncovered some embezzlement going on with the heads of Noble 33. Mahomes and Kelce have not been named in this lawsuit, fortunate for them, but certainly 1587 Prime might be at risk in their $90 8-ounce fillets. And on top of that, I don't know anything about any Filipino sailors that Garrett was talking about.
All right, another story that we've discussed, really from the moment it broke. It's the latest with the Brian Flores discrimination lawsuit against the NFL. The time is yours. What's going on?
Yeah, we have covered this, and this is an important story, I think. We've discussed it a number of times, and 4 years ago, Brian Flores, he's a former head coach. He's held a lot of assistant coach jobs in the NFL. He applied for and interviewed for a number of NFL head coaching positions, and he got a number of interviews. What's called the Rooney Rule requires NFL teams to interview minority candidates for executive and coaching positions. Well, he didn't get any of the jobs. And on the heels of that, he sued the NFL, the Dolphins, the Giants. There was one other team he sued. He was alleging racial discrimination, that they interviewed him, but there was no intention of ever hiring him. And he alleged he had some evidence behind it. Well, he filed in court, in federal court, and what do we always talk about? The NFL said, hey, not so fast. You can't go to court on us because what? Your Players Association has entered into agreement, and you have employment contracts that says if you're a player in the NFL, this applies for the NBA and MLB as well, but if you're a player or a coach or an executive or an employee of our organization, to protect us, rather than going to court, you have to arbitrate these things. You have to enter into arbitration. A lot of corporations do this to protect themselves because getting into court's messy, it's risky, it's expensive, so they put these arbitration clauses in there. And so the NFL said, no, we don't want to do this. We want to go arbitrate this. Why do they want to arbitrate it? Because guess who the arbitrator is? It's one Roger Goodell, and we've seen this happen a number of times. And Brian Flores, he won on the lower court. He won at the district court. And so what did the NFL do? They appealed it because they don't want this thing getting out of hand, so they want it being arbitrated. And, well, now the Second Circuit Court of Appeals has come down, and they've affirmed the lower court's agreement, saying they come out and said, no, you don't have to arbitrate this, Brian Flores. They're saying that it violates the Federal Arbitration Act. This agreement is therefore unenforceable because it fails to guarantee Flores a statutory cause of action. They go into it, says the ruling found that the dispute resolution procedures, basically what the NFL has set up for arbitration, it doesn't really satisfy the things that arbitration should. And in the end, really what they're saying is this just isn't fair. This isn't fair that you could sue the NFL and Roger Goodell, I don't know if he's named here, and so this is a big victory. You heard about Gruden, who sued the NFL, all of these emails that came out that named Gruden and, things about him. He didn't say the nice thing about him. That was going to go before Gruden before Goodell. Gruden won that, and now Flores has won that. And Flores' attorney comes out, basically says this court's decision recognizes the arbitration forum in which the defendant's own chief executive gets to decide the case would strip employees of their rights under the law. So this is going to go forward, potentially to trial. It says they're going to get a trial date. I'm going to make a guess right now that we're going to be talking about this in a brief segment, saying the Flores case against the NFL has settled because they don't want this going in front of a jury.
All right, Garrett, over to you, bud.
Well, I was glad to see it. I think this is good precedent. I mean, it makes sense, obviously, that for a lot of disputes in these that arbitration is the right setting, but not for every case. And I don't think this is a good case for it. I mean, for Roger Goodell to be the judge, jury, and executioner in these cases, it's just, I agree, it's not fair. So I was happy to see this hold up, this decision.
All right, moving over to the world of Major League Baseball, where sounds like somebody's not being a very good teammate. Let's see. This is a pitch rigging case, and one pitcher is looking to shift more of the blame onto his teammate, as I understand it. What's going on?
Yeah, these are two Guardians pitchers who were both indicted and charged with federal charges for this pitch rigging scheme. And that happened a little while ago, but what's happened now is really one of these pitchers, Luis Ortiz, has flipped more or less on his teammate Emmanuel Clase. And they're co-defendants and co-conspirators, essentially, in this criminal case. But what Luis Ortiz wants to do is he wants to separate himself from Emmanuel Clase, and he's really trying to avoid kind of the classic guilt by association. And what he's saying is look, I was a small fish in this whole thing. I really didn't do anything. Maybe I threw a couple of pitches, like two, as opposed to Emmanuel Clase, who threw a couple hundred rigged pitches. And he's also saying this was Emmanuel Clase's idea. I just didn't really know what I was participating in, but he was really the mastermind. And so this happens obviously in cases with multiple criminal defendants where they kind of flip and start pointing the finger at each other. But what I thought was funny that also just came out on this, some of the text messages, right, from Emmanuel Clace to the other co-conspirators, a guy and then these bettors were in the Dominican Republic, and they're placing these bets. And so this is the coded language on the text messages. So Emmanuel Clace, the pitcher, he gets a text message that says, "Throw a rock at the first rooster in today's fight." And Emmanuel Clace responds and says, "Yes, of course. That's an easy toss to that rooster." And then just to make sure it's clear, he follows it up by saying he's going to throw it low. So there's a bunch of text messages like this in coded language, calling them roosters and chickens and things like that. But anyway, kind of an interesting case. We'll see what happens.
Preston, what do you have on this, bud?
Yeah, I think it's a smart move by Ortiz's lawyer. He basically saying, hey, I was bad, but I wasn't as bad as you. And then I read another thing. Ortiz's attorney, he said he raised the possibility of serving as a second prosecutor and calling Clace's lawyers to the stand in defense of his client. I guess what he's going to do, is get them up there under oath, and attorney-client privilege is going to come to this and basically say, didn't your client do all of this? I don't know how that's going to work, but I thought that was an interesting move by him.
All right, final one for the day. It would not be Sports Court if we did not have an NIL-related story, and we do. A story that we covered. It is a settlement between Jaden Rashada and Billy Napier. What's the update here?
Yeah, so our guy Jaden Rashada, back in a five-star recruit back in 2022, had a deal in place with Miami for $9.5 million. And here comes Florida along and offers him, he alleges, an almost $14 million deal over 4 years with some signing bonuses of $500,000. Well, his claim is they didn't make good on this. And so he sued the University of Florida. He sued then coach Billy Napier and a number of other NIL boosters that played this. And his claim basically was, you offered this to me and you never paid it to me. And so they said, no, he kind of had that wrong. He misinterpreted kind of some of what the deals are. But he's saying, hey, I left a deal with Miami of $9.5 million. And apparently he had some texts out there that kind of pointed to them saying, hey, we need to lock him down. We need to pay him. And so it is settled. And the good thing about it is that, it'll never make it to court. And we'll never see all this stuff happen. But the NCAA was watching this, I thought it was interesting. They're watching this because to see if University of Florida violated certain things. Well, I laugh at that because really, are there any rules anymore that they could slam, the NCAA could slam University of Florida with some penalties that even would stand up? But interesting, our guy, Jaden Rashada, is well-traveled. He bounced to Arizona State from Florida. Then he showed up at Georgia, and now he's at Mississippi State. And I don't really know how good he is. I haven't heard much about him. Don't remember him playing for ASU against the U. Did he get on the field, before they had their really good quarterback, Levitt? I don't know.
All right, Garrett. Final thought is yours.
Well, I think what's interesting about the Jaden Rashada case, just in hindsight now, in some ways he was a victim of some bad timing. His deal goes down in 2022 when things were really, really new in the area of NIL, and nobody really knew what they were doing, and there was no market history or a value on a Power 4 quarterback. We kind of know now what the going rate is, but I don't know that in 2022 that was really a set thing. And so these numbers are getting thrown around, and in the midst of all that shifting landscape, we've seen some of these types of lawsuits still today with Duke and their quarterback, and we'll see more. But again, I think back in 2022 it was different territory.
Yes, sir. All right, before we set you loose, for any of our listeners who have legal questions, how can they get a hold of you over at Handy and Handy?
Well, we'd love to help out anybody out there, listeners of ESPN 700, with any of your legal issues, especially in the area of personal injury, which is what we do. We help people who've been injured in accidents. You can reach us at 801-264-6677 or go to our website, handylawutah.com.
All right, guys, thanks so much for the time. Have an excellent weekend ahead. And, of course, as always, go Utes.
Go Utes. Thanks, Spence.
Go
Garrett and Preston Handy from the law firm of Handy and Handy. I wanted to reference our very own Bryce Larson, who fills in for Sean's show from time to time, and he's very well plugged in and connected to UVU. If you go to ESPN700sports.com, Bryce has written a piece on the news today that UVU has filed what's called a verified complaint against the WAC, alleging a bait and switch and targeted retaliation. This is an ugly situation, and from my standpoint, I just feel bad for these kids. I mean, UVU's got a really good basketball team this year, and they might be held out of the postseason. So if you're interested in this situation, go to ESPN700sports.com. If you're interested in golf clubs, you should go to Uinta Golf, because it's time now for your Uinta Golf PGA Tour update. Swing into Uinta Golf, powered by Worldwide Golf Shops, to get custom fit for the new Callaway Quantum Driver. The Callaway Quantum Driver is featuring Tri-Force technology, and the result is a faster face, more ball speed, and a quantum leap in distance off the tee. More info can be found at uintagolf.com. The PGA Tour is currently in Pacific Palisades, California, for the Genesis Invitational. Some players are done. A lot of players still on the course. Your leader right now is Rory McIlroy at 5 under par. Jacob Bridgman is at 4 under par. Then it's Ryan Fox at 4 under. Pearson Coody, Colin Morikawa, Max Gracerman, and Aaron Rai are all 3 under par. Let's get you an update on Tony, and then we'll catch a break. Oh, dear. I don't like it when I'm oh, there he is. Even par through 10, which is actually fine. That's T26. This is a tough golf course. A lot of really good players having rough rounds. So we'll cheer for our guy, Tony Finau. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program is next on ESPN 700. Drive at 5 time, Thursday afternoon style. About 9 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. We've had a sunny day. It's cold, but, a bunch of snow yesterday, and snow usually makes things cold. I don't know. There you go. There's your weather update, but it has been more or less clear skies here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah, after getting absolutely smoked with snow yesterday, and our ski resort's getting a healthy dose as well. Happy Thursday to you, almost to that weekend. NBA basketball is back tonight, so the All-Star break is officially behind us. The Jazz are not playing tonight. They'll be back in action tomorrow. Looks like Amazon Prime is going to have Detroit and New York coming up in about 20 minutes. Should be a good game with two really good Eastern Conference teams. And then Prime will also have Celtics Warriors tonight. So some good games on the docket. Suns, Spurs, Nuggets, Clippers as well. So NBA basketball is back tonight. In the world of college basketball, the Utah men's basketball team with a really good win last night, breaking a 15-game road Big 12 losing streak. And for those of you that don't watch Big 12 basketball every night because you have a life, West Virginia is a good basketball team. That was not a bad team Utah went and beat. West Virginia beat Kansas earlier this year and are right on that bubble line to make the NCAA tournament. They got a couple of potential pros on that roster. So a really good win. And I was really happy for Alex last night to see Utah get the win, 61-56. We also saw BYU and their first game since Richie Saunders went down with that unfortunate torn ACL injury. And they played one of the best teams in the country in a really difficult building and fought pretty hard, but ultimately could not get it done. And Arizona gets the win 75-68. Now, it doesn't get easier for BYU. They're going to have Iowa State down in Provo after a couple of days off. And for the Utes, hopefully this win can at least send them down the stretch of this schedule with confidence. I mean, it is a group that just has not had a lot to cheer for this year. They're going to see UCF here in Salt Lake and then Iowa State, really good basketball team, at Arizona State, home against Colorado, and then at Baylor. If they bring, and I talked about this earlier in the show, because the game last night was not about like high-level offensive play or shot making from Utah. They got a good game from the Sidhu Traore kid. We've talked about this. Typically, that Terrence Brown and Don McHenry are going to get theirs. Where else is it going to come from? At times, it's been Keanu Dawes. Keanu was not good last night. He only had 5 points. Traore led the team with 17. TB and Don had 16. But it was not about shot making. That was about a focused team that for 2 halves of basketball, 40 minutes of basketball, played hard and focused on defense and didn't let up. It's a season low points for West Virginia, 56. And Utah's defense was locked in all game long. Some of it simply was, they couldn't make shots. The Hunter Huff kid, who might be an all Big 12 player this year, 4 of 13 from 3, took 15 shots to score 12 points. But a lot of that was Utah's defense, man. A lot of that was really good defense by the Utes. So loved seeing that. So Big 12 basketball, of course, it is a bear. It is a difficult conference. And down the stretch, if Utah can build off of what we saw last night, maybe we'll see a couple more wins. Who knows? And then, win a game or two in the tournament. I don't know that any of us are expecting any more than that. It's a really busy night in the world of college basketball because it's that time of year where we're high speed ahead to March. Want to give a shout out to the the U.S. women's hockey team. They beat Canada today in overtime. It was a Megan Keller goal, 4:07 into overtime, and the Americans beat the Canadians for the gold medal. It's the 7th matchup between America and Canada as it pertains to gold medal matches. Canada still leads all time 4-3, but the Americans have won the last 2. A lot of people believe that we'll see America play Canada in the gold medal game for the men's side of things, and those two will be in action tomorrow in semifinal action. Genesis Invitational going on right now in Pacific Palisades, California. Tony Finau is even through 10, which actually, if you look at the field, is not a bad spot to be in. A lot of really good golfers struggling today. Your leader right now is Rory McIlroy, who's through 17. He's 5 under par. Your leader in the clubhouse is Pearson Coody, who's 3 under after carding a 68. So a lot going on. Busy time. Sham Sharania, let's bring you the update here. So, of course, Tankathon NBA 2026 continues to be topically what a lot of people are talking about, with the Utah Jazz being very prevalent in that conversation as far as a national topic. Well, in response, Adam Silver has finally done something. So, a couple of tweets and then we'll catch a break. Tim McMahon's going to join us. Latest on the Jazz, latest on the NBA, who covers the NBA for ESPN. But Commissioner Adam Silver informed the league's 30 general managers on Thursday that the NBA plans to make anti-tanking rule changes for next season. Sources tell ESPN. Stakeholders have intensified dialogue about combating tanking because, of course, it's been such a massive storyline. So here's what we know as of now before we catch a break. Multiple sources with knowledge of the GM meeting today, as well as the late January competition committee meeting, told ESPN that the following concepts have been discussed to curb tanking. First-round picks can be protected only top 4 or top 14 plus. So picks 5 through 13, you can't put protections on those. The lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline or a later date. That is dumb because that just means teams will be bad up until then. No longer allowing a team to pick top 4 in consecutive years and or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. Don't love that. Teams can't pick in the top 4 the year after making the conference finals seems silly. Lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. Okay, so they're just going to tank longer. Lottery extended to include all play-in teams, and then finally flatten odds for all lottery teams. So that's the proposal. Those are things that have been discussed, but we'll catch a break and continue talking NBA basketball. All right, final segment, Thursday's show. I'm running out of steam, man. I've been battling something all week. I'm glad we had Monday off. I'm glad this is a 4-show week because after tomorrow, I will not be talking for probably 2 straight days.
Take a little sabbatical over the weekend.
See, here's the issue. Do you so when it comes to cough drops, like I've been all show long, like every break, I am just sucking on these things. It helps a little bit, but I don't like the way cough drops make me feel. Like it's to be sucking on like 12 cough drops a day can't be healthy.
Yeah, you may have to go because they got chemicals in them. They got stuff in them. You have to go like just some honey and tea, lemon water.
Definitely smashed some tea about halfway through the show. Somebody finally fixed our machine. So shout out to whoever that was. Definitely wasn't me. I gave it a little bit of an effort. I'm thinking Epsom salt bath tonight. I'm thinking just relaxing. Maybe a little Harmon's Hot Bar, little Mike Tirico. Got a date with Mike Tirico.
There we go.
Have you ever been to the Harmon's Hot Bar downtown?
Like the salad bar and the...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite excellent.
Like multiple times a week sometimes.
They do an excellent job at Harmon's. Hot take, Harmon's Hot Bar. Harmon's Hot Bar better than Whole Foods Hot Bar.
Okay.
Yeah, hot take, I know.
The Harmon's downtown for sure. If you go out of the other ones, I don't know.
Well,
that's my spot.
But I don't know about the other ones. We've been over this. Like Olympus Cove is American Fork. Yeah, I don't know what's out there. Holiday is Springville and Lehigh.
Essentially.
They're all the same thing to me. So all I need is my Harmon's downtown. That's all I need.
Fair enough. It is a good spot. I like when I get out to some Whole Foods, though.
NBA basketball back tonight. Have you I was talking to Bobby Marks about this.
Uh-huh.
Of course, early on NBA season, we're still very football-centric, college and pro. And then the NBA starts getting a little more interesting. And unfortunately, if you're in this ecosystem in this city when football ends and the Jazz aren't serious, it's hard. But the first time I watched Detroit, they beat the you-know-what out of the Knicks. They dismantled the Knicks. They're playing right now. Have you watched Detroit at all this year? They're really good, dude. Like much better than I think I realized.
Yeah, they're not a team that always gets the love on the national TV spotlight, but if you get a chance to watch them, man, Kate Cunningham is legit. They've surrounded him with some pieces that I do like. I don't know about East contenders, but East upsetters, East chaos makers, absolutely. That's a team you got to look out for.
If Tatum comes back, I don't know, man. Jaylen Brown's been so good because the East is so wide open. I would say more often than not, like, rest Jason Tatum. You're still a franchise pillar, and you're only in your mid-20s. I feel like the East is so wide open that if Tatum comes back, he's not going to look like himself initially. But give him like 2 or 3 weeks, Boston has a shot to get this thing done again. I really believe that.
Yeah. I always hesitate when your guys aren't playing during the year, right? You want them fresh for the playoffs, but there's always that to a certain point where then you come back and you got to ramp it up at some point. So I'm with you, but the longer they go on without some of their key pieces, including Jason Tatum, the longer it may take them to adjust, right? We did it with the Warriors a few years ago, and now they made a run, but it was something where you can't just come back and get all your pieces and then expect to be ready for a 7-game series. There's got to be some sort of ramp up and some sort of chemistry building beforehand. And hey, they look pretty good even without him. Mm-hmm. So when you throw him back into the fold, you're not going to be worse. That's not what I'm saying, but there is going to be an adjustment getting back into that rhythm.
Yeah, the East feels wide open, and we'll see what Cleveland looks like with Harden. And, we'll see if the Knicks can actually figure out how to guard consistently. It's just that's what happens when you fire a great coach and hire an average one.
Well, and then in a lot of ways, I like Donovan Mitchell. I like James Harden. That together, there's only so much air you can bounce out of a basketball, and there's a lot of defenses or a lot of offenses that are just going to go straight at both of those guys.
Well, I have the opposite opinion of everybody when it comes to what Cleveland's doing. I think they know Mitchell's gone. They get rid of Garland's money. Harden's in the last year of his deal. I think they trade Mitchell next year, final year of his deal, and rebuild just like the Jazz had to, because I don't think Donovan's staying.
Around James Harden? At this point?
No, Harden's gone. This is the last year of his deal. Yeah. So you get rid of Garland's money. You had him on the books for another 3 years.
So you're back to like square one, right, if you're Cleveland.
But that's what they're doing. In my opinion. But I keep hearing people say, like, the East is wide open. You go all in to try and win it. I'm like, with that dude, the wrong call. Look.
That makes as much sense as trying to pair those guys together.
I come at this with a pretty unique perspective, knowing Donovan a little bit. He does not want Cleveland. Like, for all the people that hate Salt Lake, have you ever been to freaking Cleveland, Ohio? I don't give a rip like what you think about Salt Lake. Cleveland is not the spot. Donovan cares about one thing and one thing only, and that is sitting at the cool kids table. He wants to end up New York, Miami, L.A. So everyone's making it this thing like, oh, no, it's wide open. They think they can. No, you can't win it with that. That's not happening. Garland's money's off the books. Harden's a free agent. I think they trade Donovan next year because they know he's walking on them no matter what.
I think that makes as much sense as what they're kind of building for what people say is a wide open East.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's Oklahoma City, and San Antonio in the West, and that's all? Would you throw anybody else in there? Jokic, Denver? Do you believe in Houston at all?
Denver's there just because, and I hesitate with the Lakers. There's so much talent, but I mean, you just got to see what they look like come playoff time. Denver with Jokic, you got the best player on the floor, which means you have an opportunity. But yeah, man, it's going to be a tall task to get past both OKC or, frankly, San Antonio right now.
See, the Lakers' problem is simple, and it's one of the reasons the Jazz are attacking this the way they are. Now you have to have size in the West.
Yep.
You've got to have not just one, but a couple of big bodies. You can throw at Jokic. You can throw at Wembanyama. And Oklahoma City, Hartenstein isn't awesome, but he's a guy you can throw out there that makes people uncomfortable. And Chet's 7'7" The Lakers have no bigs, dude. Jackson Hayes is awful.
That's the problem with the Lakers is it's matchup dependent, right? They could make a run, but if you match up with Victor Wembanyama, who do you throw on him, right? Mm-hmm. Who do you throw on Jokic? Yeah. I think you probably would rather see Jokic because you can throw LeBron on him. You could throw just a body at Jokic and try to affect some stuff. But with Wemby and with OKC with all that length, I don't know that the Lakers have anything to answer that.
What did the Jazz? How many games did the Jazz win the year Wembanyama was available? Like 32 or something
ish.
The dumbest thing of all time when that guy was available. And you knew he was available because, Rudy Gobert played for your team, and we all learned about Wembanyama basically through Rudy. But congrats on your 34 wins. All right, anyway, that'll do it for today's show. We will get your weekend started out tomorrow on a Friday. Porter, how exactly do we plan to do that?
Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, stops by talking running Utes latest, maybe some off-season football. Howard Beck for our NBA Daily Assist. We'll get an update at the Genesis Invitational from Paul Pugmire. And then our guy Sean Mooney going to be back in studio with us.
Very nice. So that will be an excellent Friday show. Join us for that. We'll say goodnight for today's show and say a special thank you to Tim McMahon, Adrian Denny, Jason Batacchio, and Brian Dunseth. For any of the sound you missed from the show, ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app, take us on the go, then check out the podcast. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great Thursday evening, and we will talk to you on a Friday drive right here on ESPN 700.